You're oh man. Well, welcome to the Mack Flash Five. Here we are. It is top 5 characters from movies, and bam, look at these 5 characters. Woo. That's what I'm talking about right here. That's it. These guys right here. We are the Mack Flash 5. We are Mack Flash, François, and the team Matthew, Mack Flash, Mike Ruckus, Tanksky. Hey, that's hard to say. Why couldn't you pick an easier name? AB and Steamin' Scotty Beamon. Look at this guy. Look at this guy. We are here as we normally do, discussing our top 5 movies, each of a given category. Last week, Scott picked top 5. He went outside of the norm here. Top 5 movie characters. So it didn't have to be a movie. It had to be a character, which just opens up so many possibilities, guys, right?
Oh, well, at least 5. At least 5.
Yeah. At least 5.
If you're feeling froggy, 3 honorables, so max 8.
Well, what I'm saying is the possibilities of the fact that you could have picked 2 or 3 characters from one movie, and it would have totally have been valid. You could I bet you most people think, oh, you mean leading characters, like the best characters. Be like, nah, I really like this tertiary character from this one movie. I cannot wait to see what you guys came up with. I am surprised with what I came up with, honestly. Do we start with the person who chose the topic? Is that what we do?
We
do. Scotty Beamon. Take it away.
So we're going to start it off hot. Like I said, when I was putting this together, I looked around my basement of collectibles. I'm like, who do I own stuff of? If I got them on the walls, if I have a T-shirt of them, odds are they're going to be one of my favorite characters. So we're going to start with my number 5. My name is Willie Beamon. Willie Beamon, played by Jamie Foxx from Any Given Sunday. And I rewatched Any Given Sunday in prep for this, and I think Willie Beamon is easily everything I love in the world of sports and movies put together. And it was really one of Jamie Foxx's breakout roles. And you see this stellar cast. And then this guy who was doing TV at the same time gets the lead role as the 3rd-string quarterback. Now, I'm a huge sports fan, football fan, everything all considered. And my favorite kind of athlete, AB knows this, is the young, cocky, arrogant, better than everyone else, front page of the magazine, put the team on his back kind of guy. And that's exactly what Willie Beamon becomes. So as the movie progresses, he starts putting together a little bit of a win streak, and you're watching this and you're like, this is great. But then there's this ideology going on with the team, and it's coached by Al Pacino, who's the grizzled old football coach, and his starter that he's loyal to is Dennis Quaid. Dennis Quaid plays kind of a Brett Favre role, and then he gets hurt, so Willie Beamon comes in, and he's kind of, which is perfect. This movie came out in 99. By the time I saw it, Michael Vick was just drafted, so Michael Vick was the flashy quarterback from Virginia Tech to the Falcons, and Willie Beamon represented that, and that's the new style of football. That's the play breaks down, make the play with your feet kind of football that's so exciting. So as the movie goes on, they have this war, and it's kind of like the new versus the old. And if you're saying Willie's camp versus Tony's camp, and it culminates in a bunch of great scenes where, you know, I buy into everything that Willie says as a character. And they have these scenes that play and inject with clips from Ben-Hur throughout, gladiators of their time kind of thing. And they're going back, you know, why Willie fell in the draft, and he's labeled a troublemaker, but he really isn't, and all this, and who he puts the blame on in these situations and things. And as you're watching it, you're like, here's a really good dive into the psyche of a certain individual that, you know, you admire the athletes, but you don't really see behind them. And he's just an amalgamation of everything I like. Cam Newton and guy Lamar Jackson, and like I said, Mike Vick, all put into one. And, you know, My Name is Willie rap song is a banger. So for my number 5, I'm going to put Jamie Foxx from Any Given Sunday.
Nice. Really good. And I think this is Any Given Sunday. I mean, somewhat of probably in your top sports movies as well. I think
it was also on my top 5
before, right?
Too. It's a guilty pleasure. It's cheese, I love it, but it's fun.
It's one of those, I've never seen it, but I'd love to give it a try as a sports movie. And I think I said that when we discussed this as well. So I'll be looking forward to that one as well.
You want to watch that on any given Saturday, maybe.
Oh yeah, that's very appropriate. Very appropriate. It brings it to me for the top 5 movie characters. I'll be honest, I threw this together so fast. I went on almost like emotion, and just like Scott said, there was a method to the madness of how are you going to pick these characters. I just kind of sat in front of my DVD collection, because the thing is that I don't own a lot of DVDs recently, but the ones I own are the ones those are the movies that really I fell in love with. I've seen a lot of movies, on Netflix and in future days that I've loved as well. But these are really the movies, if I own them, those are the ones I like. So I was like, these must be the characters. This is where I'm going to find the characters that I enjoy. So I just sat in front of them, literally sat there. And as I went through, I said, okay, who's in this movie? Who's in that movie? And I picked them. The fun thing is you'll see as my characters roll along, they're all very similar. They all fit a certain theme. I didn't do that on purpose, but when I saw that theme in those 5 characters I picked, I just stopped and I thought there must be a reason I picked these 5. This is what I'm going with. So my first one is, and this is how much I went by instinct. I had forgotten what this guy's name was. This is Falling Down. So we're talking about Bill Foster. Bill Foster from Falling Down. What an interesting character. If you've worked in the corporate world at all, or the government world, or any sort of public service, you understand his frustrations. You see where he's coming from. You can really feel along with him as his frustration grows, and you can almost, feel that sense of retribution that he gets as he's going along, and you can share in his pain as well. And it's so wonderfully portrayed, to the point where I'll be honest, I picked this movie because it's in my collection and I love this movie. I've not watched it in a long time, and you could probably do that thing where you go, oh, remember that part? And I'll be like, yeah, a little bit. Yeah. So I can merit from watching it again, but the one part I will remember forever, and it's the one everyone always talks about, is the fast food scene. And there's something that encapsulates.
The customer is always right. I remember as soon as you said that, I'm like,
it's the one scene where you're like, it just encapsulates the entire feeling of the movie, where he just sees the ridiculousness of what society has become. He points it out, and then it enforces the opposite by saying, you're going to give me breakfast. I'm going to have to order it at gunpoint. And then I'm going to pay for it, though. I'm still going to pay for it just because I want society to be right all the way down to me. And I will be accountable as well. Everyone should be accountable for their actions. And I mean, Falling Down. There you go. So Bill Foster, number 5 character for me.
And it's a clear influence on the world today, because you can go to McDonald's and get breakfast all day now.
Yeah. See?
There you go. Michael Douglas.
Thank you.
Absolute.
Thank you. For all you've
done. Well, my favorite lines is with
good.
the Nazi guy in the army surplus store.
Isn't it?
He's like, you and me, we're the same. He's like, no, I'm an American. You're a sick asshole. I'm like, I love that. Love that line.
So I am due to watch that again when I pick my movies. I always show my wife. I always show my wife and go like, oh, this is what I picked, and this is the one which is like, I don't think I've seen that, or I don't remember it. So I'm like, well, there you go, another opportunity to watch this movie. Let's watch. But I was like, we watched a depressing movie last time. Let's watch something else. So we did not watch Falling Down. Matthew, what do you got coming at us for number 5?
Number 5 is always my hardest one to pick. This character, she was actually on my honorable mentions till about 8 o'clock this morning. And I had her on my list while, similar to you, I was looking at all my DVDs. And I was like, yeah, I like them. I like them. I like them. I like them. And then I go over to the Quentin Tarantino section. I was like, well, I love these movies. He creates such great characters. One of them has to get on my list. So I went with the one that appears twice, technically. I picked the bride from Kill Bill, a character he clearly wanted to develop so greatly that he had to split the movie into 2 pieces. I mean, she's a badass, for one, and those movies, Kill Bill specifically, and most of Quentin's movies. Quentin likes to borrow from other films. We all know that. And Kill Bill was heavily borrowed from Lady Snowblood, which I only saw because I saw Kill Bill, do research on it, and I was like, oh, well, I'll see this too. And in that movie, that movie is really great as well. But The Bride specifically, she's, a female assassin, which in the second scene of the movie, because the first scene is her blood spattered on the floor, and then Bill shoots her in the head. And if you want to call that a spoiler, fine, but it's the very first thing that happens. The second scene is her pulling up to Vernita Green's house in a very unassuming neighborhood, in a very unassuming outfit, and you think she's walking up to a door to visit a friend or something. And then she kicks Vivica A. Fox in the chest and goes into a fight that spills into the living room and trashes the whole place. And slowly, as she narrates through, you discover she's an assassin. And she's hell-bent on revenge to get, upon these people. And people who beat her up and then eventually left her for dead. Just another scene in the movie that's really great is obviously what is the chapter called? Is it Battle at Blue Leaves? Do you guys remember? I know the club is called Blue Leaves.
Yes, the Battle at is it Blue Leaves? I thought it was Blue something else. Showdown.
Blue Leaves.
Yeah.
Where she takes on, and that I love that scene because it's very much like a video game. She takes on, the mini bosses of like 5 of the Crazy 88. Mm-hmm. Then she has to take on Gogo, who's a slightly bigger boss, semi-boss. Then she has to take on the rest of the 88, slices them all to shit, and then we get up to the final boss of Oran Ishii. That whole scene is fantastic. Now, the first movie is, a slice 'em up kung fu samurai action flick, and then the second half of the film, or the second volume of the two, is far more, to the heart. There's one action scene in it where she's fighting Daryl Hannah in the camper, but other than that, it's really more Quentin dialogue driven, which Uma Thurman delivers perfectly.
The whole final act is her versus Carradine, and it's just a battle of words, and it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That's the showdown.
It remains interesting. That's what's great about it, is that it's still interesting. You don't get bored with it.
No.
It's good. Well, there you have it. I mean,
there's the bride.
Decisive. If that's not decisive, I don't know what is. Thanks, Matt. Let's take a look at Mike. What do you got coming in for number 5?
I was waiting for someone to go segue.
Yeah, or something.
So I did the same thing. Walked the shelf to find characters. Because when I heard characters, I was like, oh, there's just so many. And so I had to narrow it down. I had about 10 or so, kept looking them over. And it's funny, you'll see in my list, out of my top 8, they encapsulate 30 films. So a lot of them are in series or trilogies. But my number 5 is one that isn't. It's a solo on its own, and the rest have sort of a series. So for number 5, and wasn't sure if this guy would appear on anyone else's, but I went with from 1996's Swingers, Trent Walker.
Yes.
Nice.
Had to go with just
should have made mine. That's fun.
That's who I thought I might match on, but with you, Scott, there, I just I was thinking, and this is a rare one compared to my other characters, but just something came back to it. I don't know if it's because I love that film and watched it so much in the 90s, or had my little, love of swing music and such at the time. But just him as a character, oh my gosh, just like when I think of the word character, I think of him, right? Just his smooth talking, his lines. I mean, I'm not one for quotes, but if there was somebody that, you can remember all the quotes, right? Who's the big winner and You're So Money and all those, he's the one that sort of sticks with you, right? Like, I'm the asshole, right? And he just like everything he spouts, you're just like, oh man, this guy just knows what he's doing. He gets the ladies, he knows what to say. So the funny thing about this is I hadn't watched it in a while, even though I had seen it a bunch of times. So I said to my wife, hey, you want to watch Swingers? She's like, yeah, absolutely. So we put it on, and it's funny, we're watching it, and she says something that I didn't really think of, or I don't know, maybe it just didn't pop into my mind because I was thinking of him as a ladies' man and all that. But she says, man, he'd be a good friend to have, eh? And when you think of all, and then after, she said it about halfway through the film or so, and then I started thinking about it and all the lines before and all the lines after, and every single thing he was doing was to build up Mike and to be there for Mike and to, like, even when Mike had to, like, he was in the trailer and they were in the trailer with the two girls and he like, I got to call my ex-girlfriend, and he basically goes to the back to make the call and interrupts Trent with the other girl. He's kind of like, nah, that's all right. Yeah, she wasn't that great anyways. Like he's always building up his friends. And so he's just an ultimate character for me. And that scene in the diner near the end, right? You're all grown up and you're grown up and you're grown up. I wouldn't eat here anyways.
I would never eat here.
I would never eat here. Yeah, so good. So good.
So that's my
you're like this big bear with these claws.
You're looking at it playing with the rabbit. You're just playing with the bunny. You're just playing with it.
You got these huge claws.
Oh my god. I haven't seen that movie since like basically I was young enough to like watch that movie. You know what I mean? Like to be like, yeah, man, let's watch Swingers. Like I remember watching that and like being like you said, Mike, like being the swing music, doing the thing, going to the bars that had the swing revival happening, and then they would have those swing nights on Wednesday nights, and this is what trivia guys did before trivia. We went to
or we did what he and Sue did there, played NHL 94 or 93 or whatever.
You're gonna make a little head bleed.
Hey, the Kings are awesome. I took them to the finals. Yeah, offsides off. Well, I love that. I will forever torment the Kings about that.
So great. All right, that's a good one. Swingers, man. AB, what you got in number 5 movie character? Well, it's not Swingers. It is
Trent Walker. Yeah.
Trent Walker, that's right. Yeah.
Okay, so my list didn't take long either. My stuff was pretty obvious, and so then I made my list. I looked at it. I'm like, this is kind of boring. So I went and kind of diversified a little bit at the bottom, just to make it a little more interesting. So I'll start off, and I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. DeMille.
Oh yeah, that's it. I forgot about that.
Man. Not a year goes by, not a year that I don't hear about some escalator accident involving some bastard kid that could have easily been avoided had some parent, I don't care which one, some parent conditioned him to fear and respect that escalator.
That kid is back on the escalator.
Scene.
Escalator.
So my number 5 is Mr. Brody Bruce from the View Askew. The View Askew universe. These bad boys here, mainly this one. And so Brody Bruce came up because I quote that movie Mallrats constantly. I've watched that movie a boatload of times, and so I started thinking about Brody and why I like him so much. And I started thinking, Brody is every comic book nerd's like fantasy of who they want to be. They want to be this guy who's super funny, who's really quick-witted. He has a boatload of comics, and later on in Jay and Silent Bob, he owns a comic shop. His girlfriend is super hot. He's with Shannon Doherty. Like he's just like super cool and knows all the comic book things and gives quotes and stuff like that, and like just like comfortable in his skin, and like that every comic book guy wants to be. So I'm like, yeah, that's why I like Brody. Brody is hilarious, and he likes all the things that I like, and he's way cooler than I'll ever be. And yeah, it cracks me up. Anyway, I love Brody. Brody's probably my favorite View Askew guy, period, and one of my favorite comedian guys.
It was a solid choice. It wasn't even on my radar, but you say him and I'm like, why wasn't he on my radar?
Yeah.
He's probably the most universally appealing character that Kevin Smith's created.
Stink Bomb.
Like Holden McNeil's
Stink Bomb. So good. So good.
The way he does it, it's so gross. Just watching him do it.
And with that, we cue the music.
Matt.
Matt.
I was
Matt.
We are due to do like a rewatch. We should do like some sort of special on the View Askew universe, rewatch them all, do some trivia on it. We should do like a whole month dedicated
started
to it.
one.
We have a
we have one in there
ready to go. So
excellent. Oh, this is
I was thinking about that. An audio version maybe of like Mack Flash movie commentaries that nobody asked for.
Hey man, if you guys want to see that, let us know in the comments.
We could do this while we watch like at the same time.
Yeah, and all you have to do, we won't break copyright. All you have to do is just cue our thing while you watch the movie, and then it'll be like we're there at the same time.
No, let's have a sixth window aimed at a TV, and we'll just break it. We'll just full on break
screw it. We don't want to monetize. We don't matter. Yeah. It doesn't matter. All right, we're down to the number 4 top 5 movie characters. Number 4 with Willie Beamon.
So my 5 was Willie Beamon, was just for fun. I'm going to go 4 to 1 as we go around. Are going to be very more personal choices for me, and it's funny what AB says about like identifying and wanting to be the character that you see. Because when I saw this character, he's appeared in 4 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We're going to go there, and I thought that this was one of the best representations of what I feel like as a character, if there were ever a character on a screen, and not just because in my eyes how cool he is, but it's also the vulnerability that this character expresses, and we'll get into that and things that make him a hero. My number 4
is
Peter Quill, Star-Lord himself.
I'm glad.
And the reason why when I first saw Guardians 1, August 1st, 2014, and I'll never forget, and you see Peter Quill, and he's coming in and he's all cool. And then Redbone's Come and Get Your Love hits, and he's dancing around, and you're like, this is great. This is amazing. But then as the movie progresses on, you're like, oh, this is what a fan of Han Solo thinks it's like to masquerade around as Han Solo, to be the cool space pirate. But he's really not. He's this kind of arrogant, kind of lovable thief, but inside he wants to do more, and he wants to be something more, and he wants to have a family and somebody that really appreciates him, all while carrying the relationship with his deceased mother. And I really identify in the first one, and as well as in the second one, his relationships with his parents. And this is an important thing and something I want to get to, because Peter Quill has a very good relationship with his mother, which I can say that I do, and at times my father is a very closed off, tough person to get through to. So I can tell that relationship he had with Ego kind of resonates with how I feel a relationship with my own father. So I see that play out, and you're like, oh, this is really interesting. And there's things in the first one, and there's things in the second one, and things in the third one that all just kind of lump together for me that make Peter Quill the best and deepest person in the MCU. And I know Tony Stark's probably a more popular character with a better arc across the whole story of the films. Steve Rogers is more iconic, but for me, it's always going to be Star-Lord. It's going to be the to give a shit speech. It's going to be that. It's going to be, when he finally opens up, because he's been putting off opening up the Volume 2 mixtape, and that's so important, because there's things in my past and things of that would be something I feel I would do. It's just put it away, out of sight, out of mind. But when you finally, he has to grow up, and he experiences that, and he reads the letter, and it's very emotional. And as it's going through, he conveys this story arc, and it kind of culminates in a very kind of wink to his character, and it's something that I feel, what should we do next? Something good, something bad, bit of both. So for that, Peter Quill will always be my favorite character in the MCU. So certainly he's my number 4.
I do. Yeah, it's a great pick. I don't know if you like. There's exactly what you said is like the realism behind him is like this could be really any one of us given the right time. Like I think this is how we would react as fanboys to being superheroes, to becoming a part of that sort of universe. Like I'm even thinking, even down to the whole, when Thor shows up and he's like, yes, and he's putting on the accent.
Well, that's exactly. There's a great YouTube video that I watched where it's a 30-minute character analysis on him, and it talks about how he gets the godlike ability in 2, but he's got his family. But now he's, somebody else is coming into his space, and he knows he's not the weak one anymore of the family. Yeah. But then an actual god comes in, and again, it's played in humorous tones, but there's a lot of depth to the character in those scenes.
That's
and
exactly
a lot of growth.
It shows it just brings him back down to earth going, remember, this is just a dude. Remember, it's he's not actually a god.
That's exactly. His superpower is just empathy and caring and kind of being cool and getting lucky. So that was always a character I felt I identified with. So
I love it.
Yeah, Peter Quill.
Well, that's really funny because my number 4 character is also named Peter. How about that? Right? My character following again, and I'm trying to think when I'm going to reveal the running theme of my characters. Maybe I'll just wait and see if you guys can pick up on it. My next one is one that really reflects a period of my own personal life. When I picked this movie, I remember seeing this movie earlier on and didn't like it. Didn't think it was funny at all. And then I watched it again after having worked in a certain environment. And then I went, oh, yeah, no, I totally get this movie. I'm talking, of course, about Peter Gibbons from.
I wrote Venkman, but as soon as you said environment,
no, I'm talking about
my shot.
Office Space. I'm talking about the main character, Peter Gibbons. I always forget his Ron Livingston. There you go. Honestly,
also in Swingers, just by the way.
Yes, he is.
Oh, yeah, there you go. One of those movies where, again, I told my wife, I was like, yeah, this movie was it's not, I watched it before, not funny. And she goes, yeah, I don't think I've seen it, or she watched it and she didn't think it was funny. I was like, no, this is one of those movies where, kind of waiting is probably funnier to people who worked in the industry than to most people. This is funny to people who worked in an office who understand the environment. But having worked in that environment and being the person that I am, I felt this movie to the core. I'm talking the moment he decides to just, I'm not going to go anymore. I sat for a while in my cubicle thinking, maybe I'll do that too. Maybe I'll not come here anymore. And then what about bills? No, I'm not going to pay those either. So, you know what I mean? And he goes on his journey and he does discover that eventually, whatever it is, he ends up, spoiler alert, he quits his job, goes and works for construction with, what's his face?
Dietrich Bader.
Dietrich Bader's character, who's great. No, man, I don't want you fucking up my life too.
Hey, Peter, you're on Channel 5.
I love that line.
Anyway, at the same time.
Yeah. The kind of chicks who do a dude like me. Double up on a dude like me.
Oh my God. What a great movie.
It's a fantastic movie. All those people who say that it isn't funny, forget them. This is a great movie.
No.
There's a great part. And
PC load letter.
Yeah.
When you finish reading Die Hard, you got to read 99 Best Year movies, and there's chapters on all of them. And a lot of these movies have come up. But one is about Office Space, and it's the making and all this, and Dilbert being really big. But there's parts, and they interviewed Dietrich Bader, and he's like, I saw that movie 5 times in theaters, and he's like, me and my wife were the only ones in the theater, and I'm like, this is the funniest movie of the year. I know for in my bones, this movie's a hit. Why are people not coming?
Yeah,
and read it, and that's exactly what happened. That was one of the big trading VHS DVD times where you got to see this, and it became a classic.
Yeah.
But it's all about how incredible, and everyone knew it was special, and they're like, people are gonna catch on years from now, and it's exactly what did.
It's so funny because I just read the same thing about we talked about Shawshank last time, and the same thing about Shawshank, where it was in theaters it sucked, but then through VHS and through whatnot, it just got discovered as a big thing. But yeah, Office Space, Peter Gibbons, was that? I think Mike, you had something to say.
Oh, I was thinking. So theme is disgruntled office workers.
Yeah.
So far,
but I'm gonna. Ah, shit. We'll have to see. Let's take a look at Matthew's number 4 character.
My number 4, we're going to step back into the MCU with mine as well. And for a long time, there's been a fight in my head over which character I like more, Tony Stark or Steve Rogers. And now we're going to put, this is, official. It's on wax, or it's in the internet. Steve Rogers is my number 4 and my number 1 MCU character, favorite character.
Oh, wow.
Great.
Okay.
And it came up. He moved up to the top of the list and number 4 on here because I was doing a little research on his character, and one specific thing really jumped out at me. Steve Rogers, and there you see the difference between Captain America: The First Avenger, and then the next one appearance would be Avengers, and then Winter Soldier. Steve Rogers puts out like a very pleasant exterior when he's I'm going to talk about after he gets thawed out of the ice. But he's got a very almost depressive interior. He's in a world that's completely different from what he knows, and he does not want to be there at all. Everything he knows from his past is gone. Most of his friends, his army buddies, they're all dead. The structure, he likes the structure of the military and the army. So joining the Avengers brings up, a little bit more of like, okay, I can get comfortable around these people, but I don't want to be here. And with the ending of Endgame, you see he's, a lot of people thought his last, his motive for staying in the past was selfish. But if you watch those movies again, it's his chance to go back to where he belongs and, eventually return to what is the present, but gradually, like any person should. I mean, it's a fish out of water character that is, tenfold almost, but he doesn't really say, I hate this place. He's just like, okay, I'm here. I better get used to it. People keep telling him, oh, you should watch these movies, listen to this music. It's like, yeah, that's no problem. I'll do that. He makes friends as best he can, but he really doesn't want to be there. Steve Rogers, favorite character in the MCU. I just want to talk about that part of his character.
I think it's great because I think what it is that he fulfills his destiny completely and then gets rewarded for it.
It's so earned. When you rewatch those, it's so earned.
Yeah.
Especially at the point, which I'll tag what you're saying about where he finally feels. I like that line at the end of Age of Ultron when they're kind of disbanding and Thor goes back to take care of his stuff. And the car pulls up for Tony and then he's like, are you okay? And he's like, for the first time, I actually feel kind of at home. But you're right. Yeah. They have the compound. They're going. And that's like a nice mid-level arc right before Civil War, Infinity War, and Endgame kind of shake him up one last time. But that's where he's kind of headed. And then everything takes him to another plateau after that.
Yeah. Yeah. And fighting Thanos has got to be, the ultimate. He said he has his famous line, I don't like bullies. Thanos being the ultimate bully. We defeated him. What's left for me to do? I'm retiring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he definitely has the best of all the solo movies. Like, no question. Like his solo movies blow all the other movies out of the water as far as like a series of just the solo movies.
Nice. In Hollywood, there's probably, we can think about this after, there's probably no director that really gets the source of a character correct than Joan Anthony Russo. Because when they have him, they cultivate that character in a way that like Joe Johnston got. Whedon was okay, but then the Russos take him as a character again, interacting with Sam and Sharon Carter, and then everything in Civil War and how he is. Like, I wish when I see a problem, I can turn away and ignore it. No, you don't. No, right. I don't. It's great stuff that the Russos really bring out with him. And then in Endgame, when he becomes when he's leading the rehab group, like as that Sam was doing like the therapy sessions, it's just great ticks to the character that just make him so much better. So, yeah.
Agreed.
Yep, great character for sure. It's really good, especially and you could even look at the simplistic fact that Tony kind of starts as the first leader of the Avengers, and it ends up being totally Cap's show in the end. In the end, it's like he's the captain. There's
almost a literal ball he passes to him. He says, "Yeah, call the play," and Captain America gives all the instructions in terrific form. He's always great at giving speeches too.
That's
there's a cut. Yeah.
And, I mean, and
it's pretty good.
But it's referenced to it's referenced in the movie as well.
and that's where it is in the comics too, right? I mean, like they made the MCU kind of, like you said, made Iron Man the main guy. In the comics, it's all about Cap. Cap is leading the Avengers the whole time. Cap is the one, like they did it in Endgame with Avengers Assemble, right? That's Cap's show. Cap's show is the guy in Avengers. Like he is leading the show the entire time.
I remember I was with a buddy of mine and we were watching The Losers, and that's got, oh my god, I'm missing
everybody.
Name already.
It's got Idris Elba,
but it's got Chris Evans in it.
Yeah,
and me and my buddy were watching it, and I was watching the screen. I was like, that's the guy who should play Captain America. I was talking about Jeffrey Dean Morgan.
Awesome. He played the comedian. He played the warped version of in the comedian.
Right. Yeah,
that's true.
That's awesome. All right, number 4. Mike, what do you got?
Oh, I'm gonna leave the Marvel universe and go to a different universe.
Completely different universe right now.
As the Chocolate Frog card said, he's considered one of the greatest wizards of modern time. Albus Dumbledore.
Nice.
Gotta go with him because he's one of my favorite characters in literature and on film. And in an interesting situation where he's across 2 series of films, as well as played by 2 separate characters within one series because one of the actors died after the second year of filming, or the second series, or installment. But I mean, I don't know. It really was a question of where I put him on the list. What number do I give him? He's just like, as a character, there's so much depth and such a rich history to him. So much so that even when even when his life ended in Harry Potter, there was so much to go on and challenges to solve based on what he did for the children in the series. But also then they went on and started to write a different series, Fantastic Beasts, with him. He's got such a backstory with how he fought Grindelwald in 45, and he's got all of this narrative that drives him. But in the world of Harry Potter itself, as we know it through the films, he's just this cool, calm, collected kind of guy who just sort of knows exactly when to say something or when to tell, Hermione to make those couple of turns on the time turner, or what's going to happen next, or when to sort of drop that invisibility cloak off to Harry, and all these little things that he doesn't tell the kids what to do, but he hints at it, right? And he knows so much that it's almost like he's omniscient, right? He almost just seems to know what's going to happen next. He knows what drives Voldemort. He knows that all he cares about is power, and he doesn't understand love. He knows that Snape is with him truly, even though many believe he's not, because he knows his love for Lily will override all of the hatred he has for James Potter. And he just knows all of these things. All the while he's collecting things, memories, and he's getting Horcruxes, and he's doing all these things, but not to be the hero himself, and not to, take Voldemort down himself, because he knows he can't do that. He's doing it to weave this story to eventually pass off to Harry, and Harry will take over himself doing that. And my one good example of Dumbledore that wraps up my thoughts on him is one of my favorite scenes. It's in the first movie and in the first book, is right at the end, and this sort of encapsulates who Dumbledore is when and I mean, it's not a big deal in the world of Harry Potter when someone's trying to kill all these people, but it was a big deal to the kids winning the House Cup. Winning the House Cup was a huge deal. Slytherin had all the points. Gryffindor's in last place. And Dumbledore has this decision to make of giving out these points. And you know how it's going to go. He's going to give out these points, and Gryffindor's going to win, and they're all going to be happy. But he's going to give them all to Harry, right? He's going to give them to Harry because Harry's the hero. It's called Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, But he doesn't, right? He gives out X amount of points to Harry and X amount of points to Ron and Hermione, right? Something like 50, 50, 60, something like that. And then the last 10 points needed, to win the whole thing and to make the hero seem, someone who really needs it. He gives them to Neville, gives him those 10 points, and Neville's the hero. And like he knew, he knows Neville needs it. Harry doesn't need that. Neville needs that. Just that's the kind of guy he is as a character. So just he's my number 4. I mean, he could probably be like my number 4, 3, and 2, but he's my number 4.
Nice.
Yeah, he's definitely one of my favorites as well. Like one of the things I love about Dumbledore is so he has the authority, he has the power, he has that thing, but he always has that little twinkle in his eye, and he's almost got the same thing as Harry, where he's got that little bit of mischief in him, right? Well, and so like he, even though he's the man, right? He's one of the most powerful wizards. He's just got that little bit of twinge of fun in there.
Sense of humor
that makes him.
Can I tag? I want to tag in after this.
Yeah.
I'll let you talk.
Yeah, I love how there's a line now. There's a line of like dibs on next.
All his passwords are candy names, right? To get up to the tower. What does he see in the mirror of Erised? Like a good pair of socks, a warm pair of socks. Silly little
guy.
But like in the scene where he fights Voldemort, all the while he's talking about socks. But he could just take anyone down. He's the only wizard that Voldemort's scared of. Like just that contrast, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I get that, and that's a great choice. And we've talked. I've seen the Potter universe once, and it's cool. But Dumbledore always had a lasting impression. AB said something interesting because it was Michael Gambon, and who was the other one?
Richard Harris.
Richard Harris.
And
he does have the twinge, and you do believe that this would be a guy who would get in a little bit of mischief. And I want to ask your opinion. I feel like Jude Law was not that guy. Like it was like Jude Law was I didn't feel like Jude Law's character conveyed that he becomes that mischievous. He was just too by the book, too uptight. It just as a person.
I think that was a choice. I think that was a choice that they made that he kind of like he kind of grew into that, right? I think that he started off being like super serious, and he kind of like through his life and through certain things in his career kind of like made him into that person he is as the headmaster. And he started off being like the rigid guy, being
just to address that one, my hot take on that is, and I know people will disagree, I consider Fantastic Beasts non-canon. I don't consider Fantastic Beasts the Harry Potter world itself. And so when I think of the Albus Dumbledore that I think is character number 4, I think of him as Harry Potter in his, and I know they're telling somewhat of the same story and they're pulling some of the stuff, but the films themselves to me don't represent it, right? Like it does.
They're not very good for sure.
Yeah. So
there's also the
number 2 is the most boring, one of the top 5 most boring movies I've ever seen. We saw in the I'm just so boring.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's really
there's
bad.
also the fact that they are okay. So given the fact that we'll probably ignore that because they are so bad, but Harry Potter's known for having like 8 movies, so maybe they're working towards making that character Jude Law, sort
work
of like
faster because we're canceling J.K. Rowling.
She's pretty sure the cancer culture already, right? Yeah, signing her own warrant. That's good. All right. So
just one question, if it could be even just around the horn. Which actor do you like better playing Dumbledore? Richard Harris or Michael Gambon?
I know what I was going to say.
It's interesting. I didn't get to see enough of Harris doing it. I don't think they're very different. Gambon seems darker, but I think it fits because the films get darker. So I would have had to see Harris do it, which he couldn't, right? But
the whole Goblet of Fire thing, though, that everyone talks about when you talk about comparing the two characters, and they show, the passage in the book, like calmly, Dumbledore approaches Harry and asks him, "Did you put your name in the Goblet of Fire?" And in the movie, it's like, "I'm about to rip your head off. Did you put your name?"
Almost, he like throws him against the wall.
Yeah. It's
and
angry.
That's exactly that's what sold it for me for Michael.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, which one do you like? Oh, so you like that one the best?
I've always liked Richard Harris. I've always liked Richard Harris as an actor. So I was obviously sad when he died, but I liked Richard Harris.
But Gambon did a great job. I mean, you're taking over
no doubt.
character, so
yeah.
Well, and like for the most part, pretty seamlessly. I mean,
seamless,
I mean, for it to be a major character like that to like transition is a tough job. It's not like Fresh Prince's aunt there.
No, the one that I can think around the same time that did it, which was so jarring, was the Oracle in the Matrix. That was so they got a complete. That was so jarring. And as someone who just watched them, like, I knew that it was a different actor, but I'm just watching them for what they are. You guys obviously read the books and look more. They can pass. He passes the counterfeit test. Like, I wouldn't care. Like, if I saw them all once, and if I didn't know, I'd be like, maybe he did like 3, 2, like, you know what I mean? So like the average fan base, it's one character, and they did, and he does get darker later. Like, that's a pretty hard scene, like the water. I don't get it when he makes him drink the water. But he does get darker because the stakes get raised.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, number 4, AB. What do you got, my friend? Bring it up.
I made a promise, Mr. Frodo. A promise. Don't you leave him, Samwise Gamgee. And I don't mean to. And scene.
And scene. There you go.
Another franchise I have nothing to add.
So we you went from one literary universe to another. I'm going to another literary universe. This is one of my favorite literary characters and my favorite movie characters, and that is Samwise Gamgee from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Ever since I was a little kid, I have always loved Sam. He's been my favorite Lord of the Rings character. To me, Sam is the heart and soul of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He is the strength, the courage, the friendship, the loyalty. Without Sam, I mean, you can make an argument that Aragorn is more important to the story and to what happens in the outcome. But to me, my money's on Sam. Without Sam, it doesn't happen. I mean, Sam bails Frodo out a number of times, up until even to the last scene, which is heartbreaking, where he says, I know I can't carry this burden for you, but doesn't mean that I can't carry you. And he literally, even though he's just as exhausted and dead as Frodo, he puts him on his back and carries him up the hill to into Mount Doom. Like, it's to me, that scene, it just embodies Samwise. Like, when you start off the story of Samwise, he wants nothing more than a regular hobbit wants, which is a nice, quiet life. He wants to be a gardener. He wants no adventures. He just wants the nice, quiet life. And there's the scene in the book and in the movie where they get to basically the furthest he's been from home, and he has that moment of hesitation, and he's like, do I want to go on this adventure? And he does. He just takes the plunge because he made a promise. He promised Gandalf that he would look after Mr. Frodo, but I mean, to me, there's more there. That there's the love between the two friends, and he's willing to put himself, risk his life, basically throw himself into this world of doom and despair in order to carry out this mission. And I can't say enough about how much I love Sam.
He's the hero. He's the real hero.
That's what everybody says. Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, that's a great choice.
I like, honestly, I read the Lord of the Rings books probably when I was really young, like 8 or 9, and right off the hop, I was like, man, Sam's where it's at. I love Sam.
That's cool, man. That's great. Lord of the Rings. It's funny because I'm one of those guys who's like, Lord of the Rings, I don't get it. But to be fair, I've only seen the first one. I haven't seen the entire thing, so I think
the first 2. So we should watch the third one together.
Yeah, we should probably do a thing where we watch all 3 for once and watch.
So, but I'll tell you a funny story about that. So I went to see Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, opening night at Silver City with a bunch of people, and there was an old couple that was literally sitting in front of us. And so the Fellowship of the Ring ends, credits roll. And the old man goes to the old woman. He's like, wait, I thought they were supposed to bring the ring into the mountain. That's it? That's all the thing? And I'm like looking at these guys like, I'm like, you came opening night to see Lord of the Rings and you don't know that there's 3 movies? Like, there's 3 books and 3 movies? Like,
but not just that. you've been sitting here for 2.5 hours, and you think they haven't brought the ring yet. You're like, how long the fuck do you expect to be sitting here, man?
I couldn't believe it. I laughed so hard because I was like, this dude, went into this thing so blind, like didn't know anything about Lord of the Rings, about anything, but he went opening night to see it.
The last 30 minutes, he was just like, okay, when's he flick it in? When's it now?
He just walks up, blink, that's it. Credits roll.
It must be now. It must be right now. No, it must be right now.
2 things to add to that. They are probably people who sat through Gone with the Wind opening night. So a long epic film is, no problem for them. Another one is my grandmother had the exact same reaction.
That's amazing.
I thought they're going to throw it in the fire. It's like, no, there's 2 more movies.
Yes, 2 more movies.
I love it.
And then like 2 prequels. So settle in, Grandma. We're gonna have a lot of fun with Mr. Peter. What's his face? Jackson.
Jackson.
Can that be one of her questions? Can that be the question in her first question in the quickie? Peter, what's his face? Fill in the
Who's the director of Lord of the Rings? Peter
so and so.
That's another Peter. Let's just have the 3 rounded Peters, right?
How are Peters associated with the movies we decided to?
Okay, so somebody's got to change their list to Spider-Man if it's not on there. It's got to have Spider-Man in here.
And we still got top 3. All
right.
Scott,
still time for you, Parker.
It's all time for you, Parker. Oh, what you got for us, Scott?
Okay, let's have a little bit more fun at 3, but we're gonna get personal as to why I love this man. So my number 3, you knew he was coming. You knew he was gonna make an appearance. Apollo Creed himself. So the reason why I love Apollo Creed, and we talked about this at great length. Creed itself is my favorite sports film, but the Rocky franchise is right there. Is probably my second or third favorite franchise. And you see these movies, and Apollo Creed, up until a little bit ago, was my number 2. Someone bumped him. We'll get to that. I'm very excited. But Apollo Creed being my number 3. So you see the first Apollo Creed, and he's just a very one-note character. He's very based on Muhammad Ali. We all know the story. He comes out and he's flamboyant. I love me some Muhammad Ali. So seeing him come out as George Washington and I want you, Stallion, I want you is fun stuff. But where we really dive into the psyche of Apollo Creed as a person is Rocky 2. The whole bit when he's getting the letters, I won, but I didn't beat him. It's really in the psyche of a broken athlete who's on his last little bit, who knows that this young upstart really got him. He won, but he didn't definitively prove it to his fans, and he didn't definitively prove it to himself. So he's taking this fight harder. All the while, Rocky's the hero. We all know this. He's going on, and Rocky's training harder than ever. Once the birth of his son comes, and Adrian comes back, and they're meeting on another level for the rematch. Rocky becomes the champion. Apollo goes off into a retirement. So the third movie comes in, and that's basically Apollo's crowning moment as a character. We'll get to when he comes back and he sees, and he's got a little beef with Clubber, but he wants to train Rocky because he knows that Rocky was the true champion, and Rocky had that eye of the tiger that he lost, and he doesn't want him to go down the same path of fame and fortune, ruining his hunger. So he's going to train Rocky, and they're going to combine together. And I love me some Rocky 3 for that reason alone, because it's really a great comeback story, but a great story of professional rivals becoming friends and brothers for the greater good. And you see Rocky 3, and people could joke about the montage and the running on the beach, and sometimes cheese is good, but ultimately there's a lot there. Now, what I love two final things about Apollo Creed, the character. So then Rocky 3 comes, they're fun, they're on top of the world, but he's got the desire to make a comeback. And you see it so often with athletes. You see it with Michael Jordan 2 times, you see it with Brett Favre 3, you see it a bunch. You see the athletes who hang on because they know that they have that last little bit. So he comes out of retirement, he comes out, and again, the flamboyance, it's what I love. It's what I love in my athletes. He comes, James Brown, living in America. It's great stuff, and he wants to fight Drago. Drago kills him. He dies in the ring. It's Shakespearean. It's a Shakespearean ending for this secondary character, this who comes and he gets on par with the main character. So ultimately in that, he conveys and completes his story. He wanted to express more, but he knew he didn't have it. And again, he falls. Now, what I like, the last little bit I'll get out here, that for me etches Apollo Creed in the legendariness. If you look at our heroes and inspirations and stuff, what I said to Natalie, my wife, was sometimes those that achieve the greatest success that undergo the public shaming and the hardship. Certainly my favorite athlete of all time is Kobe Bryant, and he underwent his assault case. And it's things like that. Once we tear down the athlete to the man, that we can strip them and see what they're made of. And then you give Apollo Creed a child out of wedlock, and that conveys a whole new story, right? The bastard child who wants to take over the name, and as he does, it's the same kind of thing that we see with Muhammad Ali, we see with Malcolm X, we see with Martin Luther King, and we see with Kobe Bryant. It's our heroes being deconstructed to be rebuilt in our eyes and achieve another status. So like I said, I do like the idea that they continued the story, and they talk about that in Creed, where he had his transgressions and he had his indiscretions and he wasn't perfect. And I think the imperfections of a person, once they go through that hardship, is what makes them perfect later on. So as an encapsulation of everything, Apollo Creed is my number 3.
Wow. That is really in depth. I like that.
I know.
And that was
put so much
3.
thought to this. Just wait till you get to my 2. I'm so excited to get to my 2.
Yeah. I'm excited now. I'm super excited. That was really good. Matt, do you have something to say about that? About Apollo? No, I thought you were going to say that. That's great. It's funny because I've seen the earlier Rocky movies when I was a kid, so up to 4. I don't think we talked about this before during the sports one, but like that's something to look out for because I'm a big fan of Michael B. Jordan from like back in the days of The Wire, which I absolutely love that TV series, and so I'm loving that he's back and like he was never gone, but now he's in the big public eye, and knowing that he's the one that's doing the Creed movies makes me want to see it a little bit more, just because I know that at least I've got some way to relate to the series now, more than just it being Rocky. So that's kind of cool.
And it's him it casts a shadow over the franchise, and it's so good. It's a great legacy of an athlete on film, and I love it.
That's amazing. Thank you. We're at number 3 right now. Number 3 for me comes from my favorite movie ever, which some of you, if you have a good memory, you will know, but I haven't brought it up. But it's not a movie I've brought up already. NBK, baby. But it's not the character you think it's going to be. Whether or not it fits in the theme that I said it was going to fit, I think it does. I think subconsciously, this character has the same thing, and he just manifested in a different way. I love Natural Born Killers, and I will talk about it for hours and hours, and I will talk about the aesthetic value, and I will talk about the message, and I will talk the violence, and I will talk about all of it. I absolutely love debating it. It's great. One of my favorite characters in this movie, when I had to think about it, was not Mickey. It was not Mallory. It was Wine Guile. Wine Guile on American Maniacs. Murder, mayhem. Yeah, it's fucking Robert Downey Jr., first of all. So, yeah, thank you very much. I'll take it. Putting on an Australian accent as a sensationalistic host of a television show that does features on serial killers and quite the sensationalistic one. Like to me, when they do the recreation of Mickey and Mallory at the gas station taking down the cops, and like Mickey looks like Duke Nukem, basically sitting there with the cigar and the brush cutting and shit. Oh my god. But like, you take the fact that this guy makes a living off of glorifying violence and serial killers, to then in the end taking that lust and fantasy and that lust for violence to the point of helping them, escape from prison and the right and all that. And at the end, he's like, "Don't you always leave a witness?" I mean, it's so great. Like, wine guile. And it's when he's so full of himself, he's in the editing room, like it's the cuts to that movie, right? And they cut to him and basically being like, no, more of me. You need more of me on the screen. Like, he's such a great character, and the way that he's played by Robert Downey Jr. and all that, and really helps bring the movie around. The whole the interview and how he gets angry and how he yells and stuff, and he's angrier than the murderer himself. Who's more violent and murder lusty than in the room? Is it the serial killer or the guy doing the interview? So that's why that's my number 3. It's a wine guy.
In Patonga.
So many good moments, so many good lines. All right, Matthew, what do you got for number 3?
Number 3. Now, you guys are going to think this is coming a little early because it's going to be a Star Wars character.
Ooh.
But it's not, what you would call a main character. This guy gets, not swept under the rug, but he's extremely underrated. He's usually left out when people are like, when they talk about the main 3 is when you talk about Star Wars main 3, it's specifically like the original trilogy. You got Luke, Han, and Leia. And then I can never, ever leave out Chewbacca. Chewbacca is, for this list right now, my favorite character in Star Wars because he's with all of the other characters, they all have like downsides. They all fail at something. Chewbacca is flawless. I mean, I don't know if any of you guys can think of something where he does something wrong.
He missed a kill shot on Kylo Ren.
He did not.
Yeah. He also when he's fixing the Falcon. No, this goes there and this goes there. There you go. He screwed up.
He was taking that apart. He didn't screw up. They took off, didn't they? But anyways, yeah. Speaking of Chewbacca and the Millennium Falcon, he's the one. He really keeps. I mean, obviously he keeps it together, but he's. As much of a character as the Millennium Falcon. They go together, Han, in A New Hope, Han is captain, Chewie's first mate. In Empire Strikes Back, we lose Han for a while, and he's flying with Lando. In The Force Awakens, Han dies, and Chewie gives up the captain's chair to Rey. And he follows her to go grab Luke, and then in Rise of Skywalker, Poe's flying the Falcon, and Chewie is still in the first mate seat. It's that kind of loyalty that really draws me to him, and goes to show that like if he accepts you as a friend, you've got it made. There's no one can mess with you. He's the muscle for sure, and not one last thing, but there's like 3 aspects. Well, there's 2 aspects to Chewbacca that are really the best part. One is obviously the performer in the suit, whether it's Peter Mayhew or Jonas Suetamo. But the other is Ben Burtt's sound design of Chewbacca's growl and roar and stuff like that. He has no, English speaking lines, but exactly what he's saying every time he makes a sound. Yeah. And in some cases, you can hear words. I mean, there's when he's in. You can, huh?
Maybe you can.
Yeah, I can. I'm going to give you the example right now. You'll go to your DVDs or whatnot, or you go to your Disney Plus and just click it, and you'll see. He's in prison in Jabba's palace, and then they bring in Han. Leia's melted him from the carbonite, and they throw him in the dungeon. Han's blind, and he can hear Chewie, is that you? It's like, yeah, and he gets over, and he's asking Chewie what's going on, and he explains the plan to him, and Han says, Luke's crazy. He can't take care of himself, let alone anybody else. And then you can hear Chewie say, now he's a Jedi.
What?
It's growling for sure. But because Han's next line is a Jedi Knight, that's clearly what he said. And you can hear it is Luke is a Jedi. Now he's a Jedi.
We have a Hunt for Red October scenario here. I think you're all of a sudden understanding.
Yeah, you're interpreting Wookiee for him. He also makes Tarzan sounds when he swings from the jungle in the jungle.
You could argue that Tarzan is making Wookiee sounds, but whatever.
Oh, whatever.
It was a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So,
fun fact: Tarzan was raised by Wookiees, not monkeys. It's slight difference.
So and just my favorite scene with Chewbacca is, my favorite scene in all of the Star Wars movies is Han getting frozen in carbonite.
Oh yeah.
They take him to the scene, and it's super emotional. They take him down, and Darth Vader says, "Put him in." And then Chewie flips out, knocking stormtroopers off of the ledges and stuff. He even gets into Han, and Han is trying to calm him down, but Chewie gets into his face. And this is another time where you can really understand what he's saying. It's not like, vocal, you don't hear the words, but he's like, over my dead body, are they putting you in that thing? Are you kidding me? It's my duty to help you.
Yeah.
But he tells him, calm down, you got to take care of the princess. That's the best scene in all of the Star Wars movies.
Yeah. So I have a funny story about
second best.
We'll get to
I have a funny story about Chewbacca. I got a funny story about Chewbacca. So one of my favorite moments growing up at church was one of my buddies was a pastor, and so he did a whole sermon about the Wookiee life debt that Chewbacca owes to Han Solo, and equated it to like the what we owe God, basically. And I'm sitting in the back row giving him like a standing ovation. I'm like, yes, Wookiee life debt. Here we go. It was like my proudest moment in church. I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I was cheering him on. Like, finally, amen, brother, amen.
Finally, church has gotten through to me by using something relatable.
Oh man, it was amazing.
Love it.
Bruce Arthurs, shout out Bruce Arthurs.
So great. All right, Chewbacca number 3 for Matthew. Let's see what it is for. Oh, Mack Flash McFly.
Oh, yeah.
I can see where this is going. This guy's on par right now.
No, it's not going there. So it's all red herrings. Speaking of characters that you understand, the character I'm going to describe now understands a lot of his own languages. Now, he's on my list because of my childhood. I'm sure more people here would be able to speak more to him. A few more probably diehard fans. I'm speaking of Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr.
Yeah, you got the middle name. Yes.
I'm not going to challenge Matt at this one, but okay.
The man named after the dog. This guy makes my list, not because I know everything under the sun about him, but he makes my list from just the old VHS tapes that we had at home. We didn't have a lot of films, but we had Raiders of the Lost Ark and Temple of Doom, and watching those was at the age I was at, both fascinated me and terrified me at the same time. And it didn't stop me from rewatching those scenes, like in Temple of Doom, with the hand there, ripping out the heart. Absolutely terrifying as a young child. And
definitely. And I was waiting to interject about. I was like, "Oh, he's talking about this. I'm gonna. Eventually, I'll let him know about this." Okay, no, I'm glad you brought it up now, and I'm gonna say I ran to the bathroom and cried, and then I said, "Why are my parents making me watch this?" And then that's when I decided. That's the day I decided. I was like, "Hey, man, shit happens in movies. Get back down there and finish this movie."
Give me some more.
That's right. Okay.
I'm like, more hearts getting ripped out, please.
Num Shaba.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, it had everything you wanted, as a young boy, just the action, the adventure, and then it's replayable as you watch it when you're older. I mean, there are some moments that seem a little, dated, but just, this this hero who can. He's a scholar, but he also is an adventurer, right? He speaks all of these languages, and he has this rich history of the occult, like just all these weird things that he can just miraculously do, and he can get out of any situation. But he's just hilarious, right? And you're just like you're rooting for him the whole time. Who else can sleep with a Nazi and almost turn her, away from it, And I don't know. I watched them in preparation for this. I did rewatch them. I hadn't watched all three in a row in a long time, and so I did all three over 2 days, I think. And I was still laughing out loud. My favorite probably line in the whole thing is in Last Crusade on the Zeppelin there. No ticket, and then I was dying laughing at when he threw him. And I don't know, just like he's probably the closest I can get. I know we got a lot of Bond lovers here, but as I was watching him, I was thinking, okay, this is kind of like Bond. I can see why people like Bond, but this is my Bond. I like him. He's as far as I can get into it. Because he is, he's somewhat spyish, and he gets, he
isn't too at the start of 2 in that white. Oh,
that's
a movie
direct
star.
Yeah. So watching that, obviously I can appreciate that, but I'm just like, no, this is my guy though, right? And I think they did a good job with him. He is very different in all three, and he's got different leading, ladies in all three, and it works and sort of Bond wise. But anyways, he's just good fun.
Too?
He's just good. Well, okay.
All right. Number 2.
I love Kate Beckinsale, man. Good enough for James Cameron. Good enough for me.
Thought you did. Yell.
But then didn't she not marry Spielberg? Is that
she
Spielberg?
Spielberg, lady only here because she jumped for director.
But no, you're actually you're absolutely right. Like the whole, and you said the one thing is like. The smart thing they did with Indiana Jones is put him all the way back into the 1940s. So that, yes, it might seem a little dated, but then you could just forgive it for the fact that you're like, it's set in the 40s. They didn't know any better.
It was the ladies' man, but when you see some of the things he does, he's like, oh, that seems very forceful. That's not happening now. And I did like when I watched all three, sort of the thought that, okay, him against the Nazis, that works. And then they did number 2, and you're like, oh, well, this is interesting, but I don't know that this works as well. Let's bring the Nazis back again. They did. So
Nazis.
I love the gross out factor too of the eyeball soup and the monkey brains and all the long drawn out scenes about just like here's gross fun.
What's the line? What's the line there in 3? He chose poorly. He chose poorly.
Oh, that's great. Indiana Jones. That's a good one. AB, what you got coming in at number 3?
All right, you ready?
Oh, wait. No. I was not.
Film.
Now I am.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Get away from her. Yeah.
Get away from her, you bitch!
This was 100% my prediction. I knew she'd be on it.
Oh, there's no doubt in my mind that Miss Lieutenant Ellen Ripley was going to be on this list. Ellen Ripley has been one of my favorite characters forever since I was a little kid. She starts off in Alien, right? You start off. One of the things about Alien is when you're first watching it, you don't know who. I mean, if you're watching it, you already know that the Alien movies exist. You know that she lives on. But when you're originally watching it, you don't know who the main character is. There's Tom Skerritt, who's the captain of the ship, and you when you first watch it, you start assuming that he's the main guy, and so he's calling the shots. You've got a lot of men. You've got Ash, who's also calling a lot of the shots on the ship, and Ripley is just kind of taking a back seat to a lot of their stuffs until a situation comes up where they're going to bring this person back on the ship, and they're going to break protocol, and she pipes up right away like, "Whoa, guys, this isn't cool. Like, we don't break protocol." And then it obviously ends up going badly because they don't listen to her. But throughout the Alien movies, and they progressively get worse as you go along. But she's one of the constant great things about it. Her character, she's always cool under pressure, but there's always that element of fear that's behind it. She's not this, fearless robot, even though she gives in a robot suit at one point. She is vulnerable. She's afraid the entire time, but she takes charge. She kicks a lot of ass. My favorite of the Aliens films is the second one, Aliens. I've seen it several hundred times. And I actually like the extended version when they get more into her history and they find out that she had a daughter back on Earth, and because she's been floating in space for all these years, her daughter has now died, and she never got to see her daughter. When she left Earth, her daughter was a child. Now her daughter is dead, and so she becomes this motherly figure to the little girl in Aliens. And there's more at stake, and you see a lot of the motherly care that she has over Newt, and the reason why she goes back for her and cares for her, and also ultimately saves her. Is because she's lost this child, and now this is her being motherly towards Newt. But I love Ellen Ripley. I love Sigourney Weaver because of that role. I think that she's just one of the most powerful female roles it's ever been. Like she's just to me, she's just a complete and utter badass, and I love her.
Nice. That's a good one, man. It's a very recognizable one. And of the movies of the series, the only one I have seen is the second one, because I was told, hey, if you're going to watch any of them at this point, because I hadn't seen any of them, they're like, if you're going to watch any of them, watch the second one. So I did. And you know what? It is a good movie. It's a very good movie.
Yeah, it kicks a whole lot of ass.
Great.
For
sure.
It echoes Terminator in the exact same way. Strong female lead. They're kind of different characters in 1 and 2. 2 is bigger, more bombastic, but 1 is kind of like the quiet horror. Like they're both the same kind of like done
the
together,
maternal,
and they're both great. Yeah,
and
exactly.
that maternal thing, the maternal thing that AB was talking about is in both of them as well, right? That's like the whole point of Terminator is protecting her son, right? So
obviously James Cameron has a type.
Yeah.
Female character.
Yeah, and then in Avatar he protects Mother Earth, right?
And, there you go. Even in True Lies, right? He takes Jamie Lee Curtis and makes her into a badass.
Right. Yeah,
by the end of it.
And don't get me started on Piranha 2, right? He does a great job.
Piranha 2 is amazing. Don't ever make fun of Piranha 2.
I would never.
All right, let's go on to number 2. We got our top 2, and then also our I don't know how we're gonna do these honorable mentions. Honorable mentions, characters that almost made it.
You don't even have to elaborate.
I don't want to talk about my honorable mentions.
All right, let's take a look at number 2 first. Scott, what do you got coming in?
I've been stressing how I'm going to convey my thoughts on number 2, and I'm so. This is the reason. Number 2 is the reason why we're doing this list. This is why this is here. And I'm going to talk about a character, and it's a film now, and it's accessible to everyone.
No.
And this is the reason why we're doing it.
There it is.
So strap in, because this is going to be a 45-minute TED Talk. Pardon me. Are you Aaron Burr, sir? Aaron Burr from Hamilton, as portrayed by Leslie Odom Jr., is my second favorite film character, and as the years progress, might rival my number 1 as my favorite film character of all time. I have never seen a character put on celluloid or any medium with the 3D depth, the sympathy, the pathos, the redemption, the being vilified, the character arc that Leslie Odom Jr. portrays as Aaron Burr. And I put it on my list, and it is a real character. Aaron Burr is a real guy, but this portrayal is nothing close to what the real person was. Aside from sharing a name and titles and a place in history, Aaron Burr was not a theatrically gifted, musically singing, dancing black man. So that is why he counts as the character in this. So what we're going to talk about Aaron Burr as a character, I'm going to go through, and I hope I do it justice. Aaron Burr's structure in the whole saga of Hamilton talk less, smile more. That's how he truly thinks you get ahead in the late 1700s in the political realm. And he meets Alexander Hamilton and he tells him, whatever you're doing to get ahead, talk less, smile more. And he's confused that Hamilton, with his abrasive nature and his ability to write, and he just changes the rules himself. He wills things to bend to his medium. He doesn't understand how that can be done. So you get to Burr's first big thing, and it's his first song called Wait For It, which is, for my money, the second best song on Hamilton. And in Wait For It, he's conveying his love for the woman he's seeing, as well as what can he control in his life. And he says the reason why he goes with that approach is because he keeps things close to the vest. He wants to play things. He doesn't want to tip his hand. So he wants to see which way the wind blows, because he in life is the only thing that he can control. He cannot control any other aspects with love, time. Alexander Hamilton, he can only control himself. So as the end of the first act goes, they're all in their parts. He and Hamilton are working together, but there is a disdain and a rivalry building between the two. Burr thinks Hamilton is abrasive. Hamilton respects Burr. He thinks he's a better lawyer, and they want to come together. In the second act, that's where you really get to the meat of Aaron Burr as a character, and it's expressed in the song The Room Where It Happens, where all he really wants to do is be included. He wants power. He wants to be important. He wants to do the same thing that Hamilton wants to do, carve out a legacy, and he knows he needs to do it. So that's, for my money, my favorite Hamilton song. And in it, it's almost as if it were Aaron Burr's Be Prepared, because he's trying to lie in wait and he's going to make his move to happen. And he does so, and he runs against Hamilton's father-in-law as a New York senator, which Hamilton views as treason, as an act of vilify. You ran against my father-in-law, but Burr only said, I did it for the opportunity I saw. So now he's being more like Hamilton. As the rest of the play progresses, they have a falling out and everything else in this realm, to the point where he tells Hamilton he's doing this because he learned it from him. He's being more like him. He wants to, but it's not paying off in the same way as it was for Hamilton. Ultimately, Hamilton's deciding vote in the election, and as they've been friends building up, he votes for his enemy, Jefferson, thus prompting one of the best acting performances I've ever seen, is Leslie Odom's face as heartbreak as Hamilton endorses his mortal enemy, which conveys into Your Obedient Servant when he challenges him for a duel, which conveys to the final bit of duel where he kills Alexander Hamilton, which is history everyone knows.
Spoilers.
But as you dive to the deep, I hate this voice, you know
what
this.
the
So as you dive
I didn't
deep,
know any of
I'm
this.
not slowing down. This train's not slowing down. So as you dive deep into the rest, you get the world was wide enough, which then Burr realizes that because he was intimidated by Hamilton's presence during the duel, and he kills Hamilton with immediate regret, he now knows, and it's heartbreaking line, I'm now the villain in your history book, which is what Burr has been reduced to through time. And then he conveys that the world was wide enough, and he was too young and dumb and naive to see that he and his enemy could have coexisted if they had worked together, thus completing what, for my money, one of the best arcs in one film, play, any medium that a character has ever done and strived to. So again, my number two, this handsome gentleman in the middle, Leslie Odom Jr. as Aaron Burr.
Very
fantastic.
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
I love it. Once again,
people will say Hamilton is not a good character. Lin-Manuel Miranda is not as good a singer. Alexander Hamilton himself is not a good character. And Leslie Odom is the lead. He's the narrator, the first voice you see, and he narrates through the whole thing. So Hamilton essentially is as much, or even more so, the story of Aaron Burr.
Interesting. Interesting. Well, I mean, almost like the way, and I don't know what, like, just from what you were saying, it's from that line, I'm now the villain in your history books. It's almost like it had to be Hamilton in order to be about Aaron Burr. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't have been able to make a musical about Aaron Burr had you not talked about all those other things around him. So it's, it had to be that in order to tell the story, because it is such a downfall for him, a downfall story. I can't wait to watch this.
That's what he does. He paints so well, is that he conveys, because in real life, and I've read Aaron Burr biographies because of this play, he was not a nice person, and it was a political jealousy, and he got him kicked out as vice president. But there's such pathos to this character. I have not in any realm seen a character convey that as well as Leslie Odom Jr. did. And forever, my guy, Aaron Burr, my number two.
Excellent. I like that. and it makes me want to watch it again or watch it
right now. I watched
more.
it
I haven't watched it yet.
You watched it,
but now it makes me watch it
I've
even
got
more.
2.5 down. I did.
What's your favorite song? King George stuff?
That was, yes. But my new favorite song is Right Hand Man.
There you go.
Hey, man, that's great.
Mike,
Right Hand Man,
what have you done? Have you watched it so far?
terrific.
Will I ever watch it?
Have you watched Hamilton yet?
Will I ever watch Hamilton? No.
Yeah, no,
Never one time.
Not
will I
even
ever
give it a
watch
chance. Not even give it a chance.
And there's so much again with Right Hand Man, the Burr jealousy of Hamilton, and Burr's in line too, but he's not a Washington guy.
AB, have you seen it yet?
I'm interested.
No.
AB, you?
No. I think you would
definitely,
like
definitely not. Definitely not now that I know that Aaron Burr kills Hamilton.
What the fuck, right?
Milk commercial.
Exactly.
I mean, like now that the whole thing is ruined, there's no suspense. So no Hamilton dies.
From the God Milk commercial. Look at this guy. Look at him go.
I didn't even know that he died. I didn't even know he died. I thought Hamilton was still alive.
No, but it's comparative. It's so similar to Amadeus.
Everyone compares it to what's his name?
Salieri.
Yeah.
Salieri.
Don't let him trick you.
And it's an incredible. That's what Dan Burrell said on his show. Is that it's
that's my number 2, Akbar.
Yeah, Akbar. It's a trap.
I love it.
It's a trap.
Number 2, I love it. Okay, so let's take a look at. Don't forget to check out the Hamilton quiz on the Mack Flash YouTube channel.
James Madison, which I wrote.
Just FYI, written by the man himself.
Wouldn't it be awesome if I was like, I wrote that one? So check it out.
I wrote it. Like,
I'm gonna watch Hamilton one more time before I take that quiz because I want
one last time.
That's what sucks for me is like I get to read them all out and I'm like I haven't seen this, so I'm just reading.
Over
They're
now,
just
social
words.
Distance projector outside.
Okay, we'll do it. All right, number 2. Mine is a character I can't pronounce, but it doesn't matter because I love this guy. It fits into the characters as you can tell right now. Yes, so my characters have all been, stepped on, if you will, and rise again, decide to become their own. So we had, Falling Down, we had Office Space, we even had, I think subconsciously Wayne Gale from Natural Born Killers had that, where something went wrong and he really needed to prove himself. He had that big man syndrome. This one is another one of those characters who has to really prove themselves or feels the need to prove themselves to a point. When you say to a fault, this is to the greatest fault, to the point where his life is literally not just my life was affected, but completely changed. And I'm talking about Vicus in District 9, main character of District 9.
Cool.
That is another one of those. So first of all, one of my favorite movies ever, but also that character. The fact that they take the movie from a documentary to a drama and carry it through him. The fact that he actually not only goes through a transformation, figuratively, but literally transforms into one of the beings that he was working seemingly with, but bureaucratically against. A symbol of apartheid. This movie, you can apply this to any sort of situation that we are experiencing, these days, with all sorts of issues happening between different, groups, whether it's racial groups or sexual orientation or whatever it be. There's a lot of that. Let's walk a mile in my shoes and see how I feel. And this movie is a manifestation of that. Walking a mile in the shoes and more, walking 10 miles and saying, holy shit, these are my shoes forever. I am now going to be this. And I have to learn to sort of not only live with it, but then it's not even like, well, now I got to live with it. I have to live with it. And then I got to make it right as well. And then I got to make it right from this angle now because I got to survive. And I mean, a great movie in general, from the fact that it was made from, from a short that was then developed into like an amazing movie. But this guy, Charlton Copley, first of all, this is the role that really brought him to my attention. And after that, anytime I saw his name, I was like,
debut.
I think so. I believe
he
it
didn't
was.
act before that.
Really, yeah. And after that, he just did everything he did after that was great, especially along with this director and Neil Blomkamp, Blomkamp or whatever his name is.
Yep.
Yeah, Neil Blomkamp. So Wickus van der Meer. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. I don't know. You look it up. But he is my number 2 character on this list. There you have it.
That's great.
Wow, it's a great call.
It's a great pick. Thanks. I never would have even thought of that at all.
I haven't thought about that movie in 10 years.
It's amazing.
It's one of my favorites. It's such a good movie. I Sarah doesn't like it. My wife doesn't like it, and I was like, "How do you not like this movie? It's so great."
So, fun fact about that movie: that's the first movie that's shaky cam movie that I saw in the theater that I did not puke.
I
didn't puke. I didn't puke in that movie.
Probably because it's only shaky cam for like the first quarter to 1/3. I think the first act is documentary, and then
that hasn't stopped me before.
There's a scene where like you can see the bars, and then you don't really realize unless you know, and it cuts, and the bars disappear, and suddenly it's a movie. It's no longer a documentary, and that's one of my favorite scenes. It's pretty jarring. It's immediately after he sprays himself in the face, if I'm not mistaken. There you go. Number 2, Matthew. What do you got for us?
Well, my number 2 is actually going to be a repeat. My number 2 is Indiana Jones.
Yay!
Knew it.
I was so glad you came up with his middle name. I looked that up today. And do you know why it's Walton? Do you know why his middle name is Walton?
That's what they wrote in the screenplay.
No, it's George Lucas's middle name.
His middle name?
It's George Lucas's middle name.
Really?
And Indiana was his dog's name too.
Of course,
yeah. Indiana was
that I know. Yeah.
That's who Chewbacca is based on.
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
It is,
so we got Peter.
No, it
and
is.
Indiana.
It is.
Yeah.
Full circle.
Full circle, baby. Full circle.
Chewbacca, played by Peter Mayhew.
There's another Peter.
Oh, Peter.
Oh,
you got a Peter alert. Peter alert.
This is a Peter alert. Party. Wait a minute.
That's a different.
That's a whole other series.
You talked about the comparisons between James Bond and Indiana Jones, and those were very much on purpose because Steven Spielberg wanted to make a James Bond movie. He had just finished Close Encounters of the Third Kind. George Lucas had just finished Star Wars. They took a quick vacation in Hawaii, and George said to Steven, what are you going to do next? Well, I think I'm going to call up the broccoli people and try to get a gig for James Bond. And George Lucas said, I got a better idea than that. I got an idea about an archaeologist named Indiana Smith. And Steven's like, well, we'll work on that name then. But you also brought up about I forget exactly what you said, but it reminded me about how he's very much like Superman in that he has he doesn't have an alter ego because he doesn't change his name or necessarily his personality, but he changes his clothes and he puts on his glasses. You got a Clark Kent look, and if you're a student in his class, the ladies like him, but he looks like he's a professor. He looks like a 6'1" nerd, really. But once he puts on that leather jacket and that fedora, he's carrying the whip. He's Indiana Jones. He goes from Professor Jones to Indiana Jones. And I'm not gonna, go on and on because we talked about him earlier. But I wonder if anybody, if off the top of your head, they're making a new Indiana Jones movie, and Harrison Ford is attached. But I'm probably betting that they're going to get a younger guy, because how I have it in my head is Harrison Ford would bookend the movie. You start off with Harrison Ford, and then he talks about an adventure he had. Now, cast that younger version of Indiana Jones. If anybody has somebody.
Actually,
in a flashback. If anybody has, just off the top of their head.
How young? Like flashback to what? As like a adult.
Now, yeah,
an
that's
adult,
a good point.
Indiana Jones, because that's one of the things I like about Last Crusade is I thought River Phoenix killed it as young Indiana Jones, right? So like, are you doing young? Because they also have the Young Indiana Jones Chronicles, which I thought were very good, and so you see him throughout as a little kid, as a teenager, as a young man. So like, what are we talking here?
So that series ends in 1920. He goes off to the University of Chicago, and the first film chronologically is Temple of Doom, which is 1935. So there's that 15-year period where we could have a whole bunch of younger Indiana Jones films.
So like he's a young man.
So between
5-year-old.
So he'd be 20 years old in the first film if we started in 1920.
I'm gonna go with Taron Egerton.
Taron Egerton is a good choice. Taron Egerton.
I'm gonna go with another teen heartthrob. I go with Dylan O'Brien.
Okay.
You know who that is? He was in the Maze Runner. It's this guy right here.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I just was looking because I remember if you're gonna keep it young.
I don't know if I know enough of the young actors out there that I could.
I don't know.
But I listened to that podcast where they dreamcast this and someone said Carl Urban if you were, and I thought that was a perfect vehicle.
What about
Carl Urban?
What about the lesser Hemsworth there, the one that's in the Hunger Games?
Liam Hemsworth, yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough young guys to play.
I mean, the big name that's been floating around for a while is Chris Pratt.
I
do not want Chris Pratt.
Because he's basically the same age as Harrison would have been, right? Yeah. So I think I would want somebody younger.
But the one who I think could nail the two worlds is like a Bradley Cooper, where you could see Bradley Cooper be like the bookish nerd with the glasses, and then be like ripped shirt, with
but
the whip.
Old, right? But
maybe a little too old too.
We get Zac Efron.
He's watching this right now. Zach
is one of our big fans. We could get him. We could get Jesse Eisenberg. You guys love that guy.
Oh my gosh.
Jesse Eisenberg.
I'd burn the theater to the ground.
Movie, rather than the recasting, talk about the fourth movie. Mike skipped over it, so talk about the fourth one.
Never
heard of movie.
What
are you talking about?
This will be the fourth movie he's talking about right now, right?
There's 3 movies and a series. We just talked about them.
We could get. You know who? We talked about him, but it may be too old right now. But what about Ewan McGregor? I think Ewan McGregor could be a good Indiana Jones.
He would have been probably.
It's funny because Sean Patrick Flannery plays him in one of the Young Jane things, and they kind of look very similar. Sean Patrick Flannery and Ewan McGregor. But,
I don't know how old.
Is that a Star Wars Indiana Jones thing? Is that a link I'm making? I don't know.
I don't know how old Dan Stevens is, but I really like Dan Stevens, and he's still he hasn't really broken out in movies yet.
Yeah,
he's still a TV actor.
Did Legion.
Legion.
Oh, he's the main star from Legion. Oh,
yeah.
It's funny, going back full circle, he narrates Casino Royale. When I did Casino Royale last week in preparation,
I didn't know that. Wow.
But he narrates Casino Royale, and he's phenomenal. It's just I didn't like the words coming out of his mouth.
Awesome Dan Stevens movie you guys need to check out is called The Guest. It's kind of a horror movie. It's like a thriller, but check out The Guest. Dan Stevens is like the main guy, bad guy. And he's awesome. It's really good.
There you go.
Segue horror movies.
Indiana Jones number 2.
That from Indiana Jones. This is amazing.
Well, we might as well. We're doubling up. We might do it again.
This is a perfect segue. If Matt's done, I don't want to cut you off.
Yes. No,
okay.
Go ahead.
McFly.
So number 2 is a good segue. He's known to some as the Springwood Slasher, but to others, he is a Mr. Freddy Krueger. I can't get a favorite characters list. It's not complete, I should say, without Freddy Krueger. I mean, maybe a little unconventional since his main goal is to murder everyone as opposed to rescue them all. But for me, the concept alone of this character, because the whole, it's a horror series and everything, but the concept is all hinged on this character, right? Without the storyline, the character, it's all linked. Essentially, he gets you when you're most vulnerable. When you're sleeping, when you're dreaming, that's when he comes out and kills you. That whole thing, when I first heard that, I thought, this is the greatest horror idea ever. And top that with Robert Englund coming in, because it could have gone, it could have gone sideways, right? Like most horror collections, if you will, not trilogies, but franchises go. But Robert Englund came in and took this amazing idea and then added just his personality and the humor. And there's so many one-liners. It's like, what's your favorite quote from Freddy Krueger? Oh my gosh. And they're also like, just like cheesy, tongue-in-cheek, in some cases involving tongues and cheeks. But I just find that most horror slasher kind of villains are one-dimensional, and he is way beyond that. And I could watch his films anytime. I threw the first one on just to sort of refresh myself. But man, just even in that first one, some of the scenes there with the gloved hand in the bathtub, like, oh my gosh, right? And even the lines, I was trying to think of what's my favorite thing that he says, because he's got just so many funny little one-offs. But it struck me in the first one there when I think it's Tina that he's chasing around in the dream sequence, and she says, oh, help me, God. And he said, this is God. And he's got his oh, sorry, wrong hand. He's got his gloved knives there. But for me, just like surpasses any other sort of horror villain, just because of the way Robert Englund plays it. And then it was really cool to see when they came back and did, I guess, would it be number 6 or 7?
6.
Yeah.
6.
And they did New Nightmare, and you actually see Robert Englund act, because it's very meta, right? And before, other films did this.
He plays himself.
He plays himself. And then all of a sudden, Freddy comes out into the real world and starts to kill the actors, and seeing him play both roles in the same thing is really like, oh my gosh, it was just fascinating.
I just saw it for the first time in October, and it is very cool. It holds up very well, and it's definitely a precursor for Scream.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh,
when we
absolutely.
watch that, every time I watch that,
by Wes Craven.
Yeah,
but it's like that. He's really tinkering, and then exactly. I just watched it in October. And it's great. It could come out now.
And you can tell which ones are Wes Craven Nightmare on Elm Street and which ones aren't. And when he did that one, you go, oh, this guy's a genius, right? And like you said, clearly tinkering with the idea for Scream, right? But just Freddy Krueger just strikes me as this character I can't keep off a list. I didn't think a horror character would get on here, but so that's why he's on my list. And who else has their own theme song, really? Like, come on. Right?
Well, he has a whole rap album. He has a whole rap album.
And he had a TV series too. Like, a little TV series.
That's right.
And then they even tried to rebring him back with
in Rick and Morty.
No, Scary Terry. Brandon.
That's right, bitch.
But James Earl Haley, was it that he played him?
We don't want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I like that. It's not awful. I saw it in theaters.
Sucks.
Yeah, but the point being, they tried. Like, they've tried in lots of ways. But to me, Freddy is Robert Englund. Robert Englund is Freddy, and that they're the character for me for number 2.
So a couple of years ago, we every year we go to Niagara Falls, except for this year. Obviously, we go to Niagara Falls for Comic-Con, and me and Mike got a photo with Robert Englund and get to meet him and everything. And it was amazing. But so we're sitting there in line, and we've done a bunch of these at this point. And I don't really get all that starstruck with people, but we're standing in line waiting to get in, and everything is curtained off, and where you're getting the pictures. And all of a sudden, Robert Englund does the Freddy laugh from behind the curtain where he's doing the poses. And honestly, my knees buckled. Like, I was sitting in line, and I swear to you, my knees buckled, and I was like, started shaking. I was like, holy crap, that is Freddy Krueger in there. That is we're going to see Robert Englund. That is actually Freddy Krueger. When he gets in there, he's such a pro. He's amazing guy, and he's so good at doing these now, and he knows what people want. So he gets his arms around us, and he's got the glove on, and so he's got the glove here on me, and just as they're about to take the picture, he puts one of the blades up to my throat as they're taking the picture. So you see my face go go because like he literally puts it on my throat, and I was just like, oh, he knows.
He's a showman. He knows exactly.
And that's what Mike is talking about. Robert Englund brings so much character to that character, and so he brings so much life into that character. And so, like, for me, the Wes Craven ones are the best because they start to get a little like self-parroting, a little slapstick, and like almost like too over the top and too like jokey for me. Whereas Wes Craven's are more like the first one and New Nightmare are more serious and kind of lean more on the horror rather than the comedy. But yeah, for me, Freddy Krueger is unbelievable.
Nice.
So I'm so glad you put him on the list.
Good choice. Good choice. Well, it's up to you now to show us what your number 2 character is, AB. AB.
Right.
I don't know why I said like AB.
Yeah, AB.
I said it really French-like. AB.
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 Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay.
Do it. There we go.
We do not follow maps to buried treasures, and X never ever marks the spot.
Yep.
For the third time tonight, we're going to be talking about Mr. Henry Jones Jr., Indiana Jones. I couldn't not put Indiana Jones on my list. My top 2 I knew basically right away. I've loved Indiana Jones movies my whole life. For all the things that we've talked about, and kind of one of the things I wanted to talk about that you guys didn't really hit on yet is that he's a great flawed character. He's not like Bond. Bond, right, is always on top. He's always got the upper hand. He's always the man, right, for the most part.
Well, we'll see.
For the most part, he's always in control. Indiana Jones half the time is bumbling around and like gets his ass kicked,
or gets super lucky, or gets lucky.
Gets super lucky, and like he isn't, he isn't the super alpha male like he is, but for the most part he's not perfect. He's not perfect, and even obviously like the big scene that everyone talks about all the time when you talk about Indiana Jones as a character is the scene in Raiders where you got the swordsman doing his little sword routine, and Harrison Ford improvised it and shot him dead because he just couldn't deal with it. And to me, that thing like that, like a Bond would have gone toe to toe with him and done things. Now, Indiana Jones is like, nah, screw this. Boom, shoots him dead.
Shoot him.
Like,
I have a gun.
Like,
yeah. I got stuff to do, man.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things I like about Indiana Jones is that he is this, and Mike hit on it too, that he's funny. He's always got a funny thing to say when he's in a bind, but he's not this perfect alpha male, and I like that he's somewhat flawed and somewhat vulnerable, and from time to time ends up losing. Like you look through a bunch of the different all the different movies, he's compromised in a ton of different ways. He gets captured all the time. He gets captured by the Nazis. He gets, at the end of the movie, he's tied to a stake. He's lost. He lost.
It's one of those.
At the end of the movie, at the end of Raiders, he lost the battle. He's tied to a stake. He's done.
Yeah.
Like, that's it. Game over. If they hadn't opened up the Ark, he would have been dead. That's it. He's over.
And in a parallel to that is that it also shows another important thing about Indiana Jones versus James Bond is that he relies on his friends. He relies on all of his allies, whereas James Bond works alone. This guy has got Short Round. He's got this girl. He's got the American guy. You know what I mean? He's got the American. He's got all those guys that help him out, and so when he does find himself in those binds, there's always someone waiting in the wing to come swinging in and help him out, kind of showing that thing that he is sort of flawed and has a bit of a. See?
What?
See?
What are you talking about? I don't know what you're talking about. Shia LaBeouf isn't in any of those movies.
The Beast was his son, man. He married
Indiana Jones doesn't have a son.
Indiana Jones does have a son. He has a daughter in a novel somewhere, but that's it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
We refuse to acknowledge the crystal skull.
What?
Crystal what?
What's a crystal what? That sounds great.
Sounds like a drink.
Yeah. AB though, anything else to add about Indiana Jones?
No, I think we've already basically ran it into the ground. We love Indiana Jones. Yeah. There's a reason why those stories are interesting to us. I like a lot of what we've already said before, that he has these two different lives that he leads. One of the things, too, is that even though he says it in Temple of Doom, the whole thing of fortune and glory, he's not really out for either of those things. He's out to get those artifacts into the museum. He wants those artifacts to be in the proper place, right? He's not doing it for the glory. He is doing it
native land.
fair. That's fair, but he also he thinks those things as being important, not for his own benefit.
He doesn't want the money.
Yeah. And in Temple of Doom, he does return the stone and he leaves it
there. Yeah. Yes.
Yep. So he has an honor to him. Like he's not just a swashbuckling pirate that's out to loot all these places and take it for money. He respects these items. But anyway.
All right, that's good. Go. Honorable.
Speaking of honor, exactly. Let's get to the honorable mentions. This is where we talk about the top three or the next three that should have made our list but did not quite make it. Scott, you start us off. What do you got for your three honorable mentions?
Could have made it. Any other list? I go with Vincent from Collateral, played by Tom Cruise.
Cool.
Very cool. Chris Pine's rendition of James T. Kirk. And my third one, is this your king? Eric Killmonger.
I knew it. Nice. I knew it. I thought that would actually make your list.
I
thought he was actually going to make your list.
For sure.
I can't believe he didn't make your 5.
I know.
My 3 honorable mentions switched at the last minute, but here they are. Jack Skellington from Nightmare Before Christmas. Absolutely love it. Danny Ocean from Ocean's 11. Very close. Is him or Rusty? I didn't know which one, but I went for Danny. And the closest, really, honestly, was on the list and fell off. Stanley Ipkiss, The Mask.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
absolutely love that character, and totally fits into the whole realm of the other characters I was talking about. So there you go, Stanley Ipkiss. Matt, what do you got?
I've got like 7 on here, so I'm just gonna randomly pick.
Oh, man, I went 25 deep.
Okay, so Sarah Connor.
Okay.
Yoda and Spock.
Oh, nice.
Nimoy Spock.
Yeah, of course.
All right.
I would even go Spock as a character in general. But anyway, that's me.
All right, here we go. The 3 that didn't quite make it. Mad Max. Good old Marty.
Yeah. He's good.
Beetlejuice. There's a 3.
He's great.
Yep.
It's a good one.
All right. I don't have any quotes for these because I don't want to take up the time. But guys, we got another Peter on this list. Peter Venkman.
Peter. Almost. Me too. Almost.
Okay. This is one that was on the list for the entire time, and I took him off yesterday because I couldn't. Ash.
Oh yeah, I thought about him too.
I'm surprised. I was sure one of you was gonna have him. I was sure.
I honestly, I don't want it, but like I said, my list was like, okay, these are all the same kind of guys, so I want to switch it up. And again, here's another same kind of guy, Snake Plissken. Call me Snake. Yeah. Call me Snake.
Snake. That's good. I like it.
And so, like, basically, they're all the same kind of guys. So I was like, I'm gonna switch up the bottom ones to get them a little more interesting. But those, love those guys.
Oh, there you go. That was honorable mentions. Forget about all of those people because now it's time for number 1 top movie character that you could think of in the last 7 days. because you know that if we did this again, it would probably be different. Scotty O, what you got for us, man?
These guys know me. These guys know who my number 1 is. My number 1 is the definition of what a hero is. Mr. Luke Skywalker, and we're we're going to focus on this particular Luke. And this is exactly what, to me, a hero and a movie star is. And it's black suit Luke from Return of the Jedi. So as we go through, what I also like in characters, we talked about earlier, cocky, arrogant, things like that. But I also do have a soft spot for like the golden boy, the one who will lead us, the true blue hero and everything else in between. And for me, that's Luke Skywalker in the saga of the Star Wars films. And you see him in 4, and he's a good character. That's no doubt, and I can admit, and we'll see if he comes up later. That's a Harrison Ford Han Solo. Steals that whole film though, and he comes back in, and then that's the big moment, right? He's the one everyone loves. And then Empire, which Matt referred to, some of the best stuff is Han. Harrison Ford is a movie star in that. But again, Luke's just slowly, steadily coming through, and you get the realization that he is Vader's son and all that. But then where I have always said the best character on film is Mark Hamill's portrayal of Luke in Episode 6, Return of the Jedi. And from the moment Luke shows up in Jabba's palace and he's in all black and he's in the robe and he has constructed his lightsaber that you see on the skiff, that whole plan to free Han and everything coming out and the black vest and the black glove and everything and the underlying of arc is he going to take after his father in turn and all this, and it's very much foreshadowing and homage and whatever else. And to me, that's just everything that I love on screen. I rewatched Return of the Jedi just in preparation for this, and that old stuff at the beginning is incredible. But for me, the next step from that is once you get him on Endor and in the ship when he's with himself, Vader, and the Emperor, and they're all going back and forth, and he's standing toe-to-toe with the baddest man in the galaxy, the Emperor Palpatine, and he's giving it back, and it's all very dialogue-driven, and he's trying to turn his father back, and he knows, and he's unflinching. I can turn my father. I know there's good in him. Undoubtedly, I will die trying, and that's exactly what he's prepared to do. And as I said to Matt, his moment is the second best moment in the Star Wars films, because there is no better scene in film history for me than the scene when Vader says to Luke, "If you won't turn, then perhaps your sister, she will." The screech he gives with that Battle of Endor 2 music over it, and you see the wide shot of them fighting in front of the mirror or the window, and he taps into his anger, which is what the Emperor wanted to do all along, and he finally defeats his father, but he knows that that's what he wanted, and he's not going to turn. It's so incredible. It's all conveyed. It's a bow. It's all that. So for me, between that, getting back and giving his father the proper burial and send off before joining in celebration with his friends is why Luke is my number one favorite character. And we'll talk a little bit about the sequel trilogy and the fact that I was so excited when 7 came out, and Mark Hamill had the beard, and I think he looks incredible in the white robes and the beard. And I grew a beard because I wanted to emulate Luke Skywalker for 7. He was on screen for 30 seconds, and that was fine because we got a very different Luke. We got a very different Luke come 8, and very divisive in the fan base, however you feel. And then in 9, I think his appearance in 9 is quite shoehorned in, and his wig makes him look like an asshole. But I'll always have Return of the Jedi Luke. And if you do the law of averages, and if I've said this to AB, he's about a 6.5 in 4, a 7 in 5. But for me, he's 1,000 in 6, that he will always convey the law of average, that he will beat anybody who comes below him, because it just carries through. So Luke Skywalker will always be my number one favorite character.
He's so impressive, in fact, that it causes Chewbacca to break the language barrier.
Yeah, no kidding. He doesn't know.
He's a Jedi.
That's right. It was actually Luke talking through Chewbacca, which is why that's how good Luke is at the Force.
Now I believe it.
He's like a ventriloquist. Force ventriloquist. That's what you do. We are down to our number one top movie characters. I'm going to go ahead and admit something to you guys. I did a last minute switch during the show. It occurred to me as we were talking that I had made a glaring omission.
Wow.
And so I kicked one of my characters out of the list. And the thing is, you won't blame me, because it was one of those things where I felt like I would be betraying this character if I did not bring it up. And I will apologize right now if any of you thought of this character. But I don't have much to say, simply on the fact that this character just every time that you hear about this character being made into a movie, you have to go see it, and you will, no matter how many times they keep redoing it. And that's Batman. Batman.
That's great.
Yeah, because Batman is one of the first movies, and I think it is the first movie I remember going to the theater with a friend, not with my parents, to see a movie. And it was Michael Keaton in 1989. And I was like, what is this? I had not seen a movie like that, even though I had seen Indiana Jones, even though I had seen a lot of the movies we talked about. Batman spoke to me. I was like, what's going on here? This is great. And then the future Batman iterations kept that going. I mean, okay, you know, they got a little cartoony, a little excessive, but then we got another series and another series, and we got Christian Bale in the Dark Knight series, and then, well, hello, you can't talk about a better, series and a great exploration of the character himself and where he comes from and why and how, and starting the whole revolution of those new, let's make every comic book movie gritty and dark and stuff. But, that has to come, sure, the fallout might be, not as pleasurable. But if you go back to why that started, you see why it started a wave of that style. And so, to me, I'll tell you right now, yeah, I'm going to go Batman. Batman is my number one character, movie character.
What got bumped?
Stanley Ipkiss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so he was going to be number one.
You better Ipkiss his ass goodbye.
He was number one.
Yeah.
So it's really funny because had I not thought about that, I would have kicked out. Falling Down. I would have kept.
Well, I would have kept
Stanley Ipkiss. Yeah.
I'm glad you did. I'm glad you put Falling Down on there. That's good.
Yeah, Falling Down.
I thought about putting Batman on there because I love Batman, and I started thinking about it, and I thought, what version? Because there's obviously, but like you said, there's been multiple versions of Batman. So which version of Batman do I pick? And ultimately, I couldn't. I kind of fell off of it because, to me, the perfect Batman has never been on the movie screen yet. The perfect Batman has been on TV in Batman the Animated Series. That is to me, that is Batman, right? That's what the Batman is in the comic, where he is the smartest man, basically one of the smartest men in the world. It's more about him being a detective, not just this fight 'em up superhero guy. He's also the world's greatest detective. That's why it's a detective comic. Well, so to me, the animated, and they kind of do that in the movies to a degree. But to me, the movies haven't really portrayed him in his full story yet, and so that's why I was kind of like, do I put Batman on there, and which version? And so ultimately, I left them off.
But you didn't have to be selective of which version. It was the character as the whole could have been played by multiple.
And to me, that's what it was. It was one of those things to me, and that's why I like it, is because in one series you can see him this way and a little more, the Michael Keaton was a little funnier, the Christian Bale was very gritty, the Clooney was weirdly smarmy. You know what I mean? And honestly, the Kilmer was just oddly goofy, so it was one of those things where you could literally see every aspect of Batman being encapsulated in there. So
honestly, Scott's probably gonna love this, but to me, one of the most comic accurate Batmans is Ben Affleck. Ben Affleck looks like him. He's as tall as him. Yeah. He is built like him. He in those movies and Superman vs. Batman and Justice League, he's kind of researching all the different people, even though that's cheesy as hell. But he is more the Batman than all the rest of the guys.
He looks
100%. Everyone everyone bags on Batflick, but to me, when they announced that, I was like, perfect. Ben Affleck looks
talk off screen.
And everything
back. He's back for Zack Snyder films. It makes no sense.
No.
He's coming back to just do Snyder Batman movies. I don't know. We'll talk off camera.
Welcome
I saw that and was like, this is messy.
Welcome to the DC fucking universe. It makes no sense. Just uncohesive.
But, we are leading
just do whatever you want.
Patterson,
whatever.
M and $100 million to bail.
Insane. Just let it go. But regardless, so far, Batman favorite so far.
I love it. No, I'm glad that I made the list. I'm glad because I love Batman. So,
and you know what? Like, I'm glad I made a last minute change like that because that was worth it. That was like, I get excited when Batman, whoever it's going to be. I'm looking forward to a Pattinson Batman. You know what I mean? Like,
man, I think he's going to be great. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be great.
Matt Reeves is not wrong. So
there we go.
Let's do it.
All right, Matt, what you got for number one?
My number one is similar to Batman in that multiple people have played this character over, since the 60s. My number one is James Bond. And I love the James Bond movies. Even as bad as some of them are, you can get through them. I mean, you can put those ones on and have them in the background. Like if you're doing a marathon, go cook something, eat dinner, not really pay attention, go through your phone, catch the witty one-liners, and then put on a good one. But just one or two things about the character that people find appealing about him. Similar to Steve Rogers, he has a very, his outside is very different from his inside. People like if you talk about James Bond, you talk about how cool he looks. He's got the fabulous clothes, the fabulous cars, and the beautiful women all hanging over him. Well, like he dresses that way because character wise, he was thrown into a British boarding school where you're taught to dress suited up. You're supposed to go through life looking like you're going for business, you're out for business or whatever. He's got the nice cars, but most of those cars are government issue. They don't belong to him. They get him. He has them for a mission, and then when he brings them back destroyed, presumably Q is like, "What the hell?" You see him with the beautiful women, but half of those women end up dead. He seduces them for information, and then really just leaves them hanging. So he's not, a role model. He is not. But an excellent movie character he is. And like I said, he's been played by 6 people. And you can go through them. Sean Connery is almost the gold standard for James Bond. If you ask somebody to do an impression of James Bond, most likely they're going to do it in the Sean Connery accent. George Lazenby, who I like to call 001 and done, who came in, did a very good job, but didn't want to continue to do that because he wanted to go live a hippie lifestyle, and James Bond is not that. Roger Moore, who was the one I like the least because he was really very much a comedian, or he had a comedic personality towards it. He's very funny, but that's not really something James Bond should be. Aside from throwing a guy off a roof and then saying something quippy. Preach it. His movies were almost to the point of self-parody, and he did a lot of them. Except for Live and Let Die, you can almost skip the Roger Moore era.
Say, he has one good one.
He has one good one. Yeah. Others are okay, but one good one. After him was Timothy Dalton, who was well ahead of his time. Because his movies are he only did 2, but they're so dark compared to what Roger Moore did that he is the proto Daniel Craig. Because we skipped ahead to Daniel Craig, very stoic, very cold, likes to kill people. Timothy Dalton, while there was some humor, you can see it's like this is where they should kept going. But I guess people got upset. It's like, this is, I can't bring my kids to see this James Bond movie, So he only did 2. Then we go on to Pierce Brosnan, who came back with, more comedy. He's usually, he's called like Roger Moore Dark. He's very funny and, very good looking. But
he'd already been playing the role for years. On Remington Steele.
I had never seen Remington Steele.
Remington Steele is like James Bond the show.
Yeah. Is it?
You'll love it. Watch Remington. Go find Remington Steele. It is James Bond the show. That's how he got the role.
he was supposed to get the role for The Living Daylights. Is that the first Dalton? But he couldn't get out of his Remington Steele contract. So they're like, we're going to keep this guy in mind. They finished, they did the 2, and then they're like, let's get him back.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like, yeah, exactly. He was doing Remington Steele. NBC canceled Remington Steele, but ABC was going to pick it up. They had the option to pick it up, and he was walking out the door because he had gotten the James Bond role. He was walking out the door when his phone rang, and he's like, maybe I'll pick it up. And he picked it up, and it's the producer saying, we're bringing back Remington Steele. You have to, you're obligated to do that. And they did that because the news was out. Pierce Brosnan is James Bond. Big deal now. And he's a big deal now, is bringing light back to Remington Steele. So they're like, oh, we gotta cash in on this.
Rude.
But like you said, Roger Moore did The Saint, which was a TV show for a long time. Yeah. And, very James Bond like.
Saint is
finally, Daniel Craig, and he's been a favorite for so many of this generation. Because thanks to Jason Bourne, where you had your action heroes had to be stoic and great with their hands. I could go through my top 5 favorite James Bond movies, but maybe we'll do that for another list in the future.
I get down with that.
We're not doing that. Mike is not James Bond. But maybe we'll do a list of like your favorite
spy films.
Favorite spy films, or maybe your favorite films in a franchise.
Yeah. And Mike, if we did movies based on books, I'm pretty sure you can hunker down and do a little bit of spy movies, okay?
Not James Bond, that's for sure.
You can just do spy movies.
To me, it would just be the last, it would be like, what are the last 5 James Bond movies? Those are my favorites.
so Matt, who is your Bond? Who is your number 1 Bond?
Well, I see it changes all the time. My number 1 has to be Pierce Brosnan, because he's the one where I started.
Yeah,
he's the first. GoldenEye came out in 95. By 97, Star Wars had came back into theaters, so I was all about that. I was, James Bond was not on my radar until like 1999.
Yeah. I can tell you,
I did the same thing too. Because like everyone, you're gonna say GoldenEye, and I had the Tomorrow Never Dies PlayStation game, which was sick, and then I just that got me on right there.
Well, I was gonna say, I can tell you my number 1 James Bond. It's Nintendo 64 GoldenEye slappers only.
Slappers only.
I also
Ready Player One reference.
I think we talked about this before, but like Mike and I have referred to before, we're not really into like watching movies that were done before a certain era where you're like, I can't get over the quality. So to me, I really got into the. I watched a few of the Roger Moores and Timothy Daltons with my dad, but I got into it at GoldenEye with Pierce Brosnan, and then Craig offered a new dimension to it, so I really love that. But they're 2 different styles of movies. So to me, I like that Mission Impossible, very flashy, very polished Pierce Brosnan era, but I love this down to earth rebooty sort of Daniel the thing that they got going with Daniel Craig.
And because they're doing that with Daniel Craig, the reboot or relaunch or revitalization of Mission Impossible is skyrocketing amongst James Bond fans, because those movies are closer to older James Bond movies than Daniel Craig's have been thus far.
Yeah,
I'm a purist. I'm a Connery guy all the way. I grew up watching Connery movies and then hated the Roger Moore ones. So I'm a Connery all the way.
Nice. Very cool. Very cool. All right. James Bond making an appearance so far. We got a slew of very good people. Luke Skywalker, Batman, James Bond. I think we're building a Justice League. Mike, who do we got for us?
Oh, well, this is just going to break that. Okay. We're diving back into a franchise here. So Andrew talked about Sam, and the strength of a secondary character. For my money, this is the best secondary, maybe tertiary character in a franchise, and the one that had to keep the biggest secret of all time, and that is Mr. Severus Snape.
Wow! Yeah,
He is my number one.
Tremendous.
He is my number one. And it's 50-50 because of the book and 50-50 because of Alan Rickman. If he didn't play him, I don't know if he'd make it this list because this is movie related, but we're talking about a character, film or book, because he played it so well, that had to play both sides, good and evil, perfectly. Absolutely perfectly. And say whatever you want about Harry and everyone else and all the great that they did, and Dumbledore, who I did just talk of, Snape had to walk such a fine line to trick the Dark Lord, Voldemort, who essentially could tell every lie being told. He knew everything, right? And he had to be able to convince this person that he was with him. But what I love about Snape was, and what Rowling did with this character was, you read these books, you watch these movies, if you haven't read them, and you don't really know if he's with Voldemort or with Dumbledore essentially the entire time, or if you will, till book 6 to 7, sort of, and film, 7, 1, 8, whatever, part 2, whatever. And she does such a good job with the character that this is the big surprise. Forget the deaths, the major deaths. There's lots of people that die and you cry over them, but this is the major surprise. Yeah. What he does to save Harry and why. And you are heartless if you can watch that scene where he's going out and he says, "You have your mother's eyes," to Harry, and then he tells Harry to take his tears, and Harry puts them in the pensive and sees the flashbacks of the conversations with Dumbledore and the love that Snape had for Harry's mom, and that's the whole reason that he did what he did to save Harry and to help Dumbledore and essentially to be on the good side. That scene, that moment, that part of the book gets me every single time. And Rickman does such a good job that even though I know that scene is coming every time I get to that 8th film, every time I know that that's what's going to happen and that, he's going to be a good guy in the end, I still freaking hate Snape for the first 7 movies, right? And that's Rickman playing that part perfectly, where I still despise this character, even though I know in the long run he's going to be for the good, right? Yeah. And that is like such a powerful character and role to me, and Rickman just killed it. And he doesn't get the most screen time, but damn if he doesn't take advantage of it. Just like in the first scene when he comes into the dungeons in the potions class, and he just lays into them. Like the whole class just walks in and just lays into them, and they're all like, "Oh crap, this isn't Transfiguration. This isn't So Snape is my number one.
That's a good one.
That is a fantastic pick.
Yeah,
I love that.
Great choice. AB, what do you got coming at us for number one?
All right, here we go.
Last one of the night. Everybody ready for this? Brace yourselves.
Oh, I'm ready.
Hokey religions and ancient weapons are no match for a good blastercide, kid. There was no doubt in my mind, or pretty much anyone's mind here, probably. My favorite character has not changed since I was 3 years old. In another 30 years, he'll probably still be the number one because I love this character, and that would be my man Han Solo. As a kid, so I latched onto that character. I mean, like many other nerds growing up, we all have latched onto this character. He's just got that thing, and he's got that thing where he's got the swagger. He's always quick on the draw. Han shot first. But in a similar way to Indiana Jones too. It's a similar kind of character where he's not entirely good. He's not bad, but he's not bad. He's a good guy, but he's not above shooting a guy under the table. And he does these things where he's a pirate, but he's good at heart. And so, like Scott mentioned earlier in his when he's talking about Luke, he pretty much steals the first movie, owns the second movie, and so me and Scott have had this discussion where we talk about the third movie, and he's kind of taking the back seat to Luke on the third movie. But to me, it's a great arc in his story too, because he fully accepts his role as a leader in the rebellion, and he takes on the role of general. He volunteers for the Endor mission, builds the team, and he's kind of taken that role where he kind of rejected that during the first two movies, right? He didn't want to be involved in the first movie. He doesn't want to be involved at all, and then he ends up coming back. The second one, he's like, okay, guys, we had some good times. I got to get out of here. I got to go live the wildlife again. Like, he makes the excuse that he has to pay back the debt, but at the same time, he's like, all right, guys, I'm ready to peace out again. I'm not down for this. But he ends up getting stuck and sticks around. Third one, he fully embraces the role of being being the general, being the leader, being the rebellion that he knows that he is meant to be. He's meant to be that leader of people that everyone knows, that everyone's seen it this whole entire time. And he takes it on. And so a lot of people bag on the newer movies, on episode 7 and 8, 9. Obviously, he's in 7. But to me, 7 kind of completes his role too, that he's been broken. He loses his son. He's a broken man. His marriage falls apart. He takes off and kind of leads that midlife crisis of going out with Chewie and gallivanting across the universe, but he still longs for his family. He longs for his son, and it culminates in just scene with Ben on the parapet. And it's a powerful scene where he's trying to win back his son, and he's willing to put his life on the line against, he doesn't know what's going to happen with his son. His son at that point has killed a lot of people. He's done a lot of terrible things. He doesn't know what his son's going to do. And so he puts it all out there to try and save his son's life, and decide to bring him back to the good side, and ends up, ultimately getting killed for it. But spoiler: Han dies. I remember after Force Awakens came out, and like everyone loved to spoil that. Like every comment section didn't even matter.
I feel like we were hanging out a lot when it was announced, and we're like, he's coming to be killed off.
Right.
And
all the comment sections ever were like Han dies in the movie, Han dies in Force Awakens. I'm like, all right, cool guys, like fun, awesome. But anyway, I there's nobody that I've loved, no character I've loved more in my entire life than Harrison Ford as Han Solo.
Maybe high five me. Luke and Han partnership.
There you go. Luke and Han. There you have it. Well, how about that for a super team? At number 1, we're looking at, let's see, who do we have? We have Luke, Batman, James Bond, Snape, and Han Solo. We are ready to go.
That's an 82-0 lineup.
That's a solid team right there.
We are going on an adventure.
82-0.
We're going there. Wow, what a great exploration. That was amazing.
That was fun.
I love that.
Fun.
Top 5.
I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect during this, but it was good.
Same. I was really curious where it would go.
Where's it going next week?
You guys were, it's going to be a short show. How much can we talk? 2:20. Check the time.
Yeah, I know. Crazy. We're on schedule. Who's got the next pick?
Matt.
Maybe, I think.
I do.
Matt.
No, I do.
Oh, boy.
Now, going through today, at least, me, AB, and Mike were talking about, they were asking, is yours going to be...
Who was talking without me?
We were talking...
Where was I?
Where was I? We were all at trivia.
We were doing trivia.
Yeah, where were you?
We were doing trivia.
That's
where were
the good
you?
question. Where were you? Yeah, okay. And they asked, so are we getting back to movies? And I was, no. We're going to continue with movie related, obviously, but not your top 5 favorite movies. I want to know what your top 5 favorite props in movies are.
Cool.
So that could be movies or props you love in the movie because of their use of the character. Yeah,
props. Here we go.
props that maybe you would like to
Nights.
own.
I just understood that, by the way. Boogie Nights. That's hilarious.
Yeah, that's great.
Props you would like to own in your collection.
Walter's dick is my favorite prop. That's hilarious. I'm gonna laugh all week about that. It's very funny.
Number one prop.
Or props like maybe you already. I know I have a couple of prop replicas in my collection. Scott's got a couple. Mike and
big
AB
gold
maybe.
belt from Ready to Rumble.
Definitely, I have
There
some
you
right
go.
above me.
There you go. Or one of those. So any list, top 5 favorite movie props.
Take a
Just
look. I
one
wonder-
little limitation: no vehicles. So no DeLorean, no Ecto
Yeah.
1.
Because that's a
Nothing like
future
that.
episode, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
You're saying
Yeah.
It certainly could be. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Oh my god! Well, that's
Sure it
great,
is.
guys. Thank you so much for this. This has been fabulous. The top 5 characters for movies, and don't forget, of course, if you've watched all of this and you've gotten to this point, you're very interested in what we had to say, and you've taken notes of all the movies that we have talked about. Because later on today, you'll get to catch the Mack Flash 5. What do I call it? The companion quiz to this, all about the movies that we talked about in the show. So you'll get to play the quiz. Don't forget all of these lovely faces that you've seen today. There they are. And we will be back with another episode of the Mack Flash 5 top 5 movie
I
props
already have 3. I like this.
next week. Everybody, say goodbye. Say goodbye.
Bye.
Say,
Good night.
keep waving. Keep waving. We got to do this thing. There we go.
Title
Look at that
screen
title
looks
card.
great.
That looks
I'm
great,
still
right?
waving.
Yay!